Oh, wait.
I want.
Please, come on now. Second, everyone. Well, I am missing.
Oh, yep, I do.
Okay.
Right back.
Yeah. Right here. I'm sorry, everybody. My computer needed to restart itself. Yeah, go. Oh, okay, everybody, are we ready? All right. Good. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the District of Brown Deer School Board meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:04 p.m. All right, verification of public notice. The meeting has been publicly noticed. Verification of a quorum. We have all 7 board members in attendance this evening. Approval of the agenda. Would someone like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda? Thank you very much, Ms. Robinson. Motion has been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Ms. Megan. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor will raise hand and/or aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries unanimously 7-0. And the reading of our mission statement is through the lens of excellence, equity, and engagement. We are dedicated to empowering every student with the essential skills to build a foundation for lifelong learning. And our vision is to provide a rigorous education that empowers our students to confidently navigate in our ever-changing world. All right, let's go on to item 2, District Administrator's report. Dr. Cotton.
Thank you, Dr. Vito. Good evening, Board of Education. Catrice Cotton, proud superintendent of the School District of Brown Deer. I began this position on July 1st of 2024. I was wide-eyed and full of optimism regarding working in a district I had desired to be a part of and looking forward to the possibilities of what could be. As we close out this year, I want to begin by expressing my sincere gratitude to each member of the board for your leadership, your guidance, and commitment. Your engagement has been pivotal to our progress and resilience over the past 12 months. This year, we have achieved many things together. In your packet, you received a document entitled 25 Highlights of the School District of Brown Deer for 24-25 school year. I would like to highlight just a few of our major accomplishments this school year. 1, meeting goals. All schools in the district meet or exceed expectation on the state report card. This goal could not be achieved without the hard work of our teaching staff, our administrators, and district office personnel who work to ensure our students receive a high-quality education. Operational excellence. This fiscal year, we maintained our financial stewardship while operating in a budget deficit. Thank you to Mr. Clement for working budgetary magic that has allowed us to operate well financially. Innovation. We have introduced new courses for high school and the introduction of new clubs like robotics in the elementary, tutoring, and arts in the middle school. And lastly, culture and people. We celebrated having highly qualified teachers who were recognized by the community and alum who have gone on to excel in their areas of study. This year was not without its challenges. Economic uncertainty tested our flexibility. Staffing changes throughout the year caused some service delays. However, these moments pushed us to the innovative and strengthening of our systems. One key lesson: adaptability and flexibility are no longer optional. They are a core competency. I would like to remind you of the year we've had. Please look at the screen for a reminder of the great things that lie within our walls in the School District of Brown Deer. Kara.
Now, that needs to go on the website and sent to everybody in the community. I'm taking the two.
Sorry. Includes my.
Okay, well, excellent report. Hey, I think we're all visual learners now. All right, so it works for us. All right. Public comments. Now this is the time our part of our meeting where we can have public comments. Members of the community, if they'd like to say their name and their address, they can make a comment in relationship to an agenda item that's here, and you would have 2 minutes to be able to make a comment, not a question, but be able to make a comment based upon subject matter that is part of our agenda. So there's no one here, but is there anyone in the chat or online that'd like to be heard? No? All right, we'll give it another 30 seconds. And she typed in. Okay, she, as long as it is, Ms. Munns, as long as it is an item that is on the agenda. Okay.
Hi, sorry. Do I have to state my name too, or is it in the chat?
Yes, could you state your name and your address, please?
Okay, Nicole Munn, 6358 West Darnell in Brown Deer. And I wanted to just briefly say I'm in support of the Community Eligibility Provision, CEP, for meals for the Brown Deer School District. I was in attendance last meeting during that discussion. And just wanted to say that I think it's a good idea for our district, and obviously many of our students will benefit. Some of the talk against it, I don't think addresses the cost of groceries in general. And basically everybody needs food assistance right now, as far as I'm concerned. So that's all.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Munns. All right, is there anyone else? All right, let's go on to our next item, our consent agenda. Would somebody make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Dr. Beadle, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, including the minutes of the May 13th, 2025 special board meeting, May 27th, 2025 regular board meeting, June 10th, 2025 special board meeting, the schedule of voucher payments via checks, ACH, and wire transfers in the amount of $1,503,512.46 in the general checking account and the food service account, including Fund 10, 21, 27, 39, 46, 50, 73, and 80, and the June 24th, 2025 school safety drill update as presented tonight.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ashley. Motion has been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hallmark. Motion has been made. Second. Any further discussion? You can see none. All in favor will raise hand and or aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You can see none. Motion carries unanimously. All right, let's go on to our next item is our 5A, approval of new hires. Ms. Jackson, Ms. Jackson?
Good evening. I have announced a additional band member, middle school, and support teacher. Start date is 8/25/25, and this is a new position.
Okay. All right, would someone like to make a motion for the hiring of Brody?
I'd like to make hiring of Brody Van Riper as a middle school math support teacher effective August 25th, 2025 for the 25-26 school year.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Welch. Motion has been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? You can see none. All in favor will raise hand and or aye. Any opposed? You can see none. Motion carries unanimously 7-0. So Brody, welcome to the school district of Brown Deer and the Brown Deer family. All right, we looking for great things from you. All right, let's go on to our next item. I'm sorry. Our next approval for resignations, Ms. Jackson.
Resignations to be announced. First up is Kate Capania from the elementary school. fourth grade teacher. Resignation submitted on June 23rd, 2025. Last date is June 11th of 2025.
All right, someone like to make a motion to approve?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resignation of Kate Campagna as an elementary school fourth grade teacher effective June 11th, 2025.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Hallmeyer. Motion has been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Ms. Farrington. Motion is made and seconded. All in favor will raise hand and or aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries unanimously, 7-0. We wish Kate success in her next and future endeavors, and once a Falcon, always a Falcon. And our next person, Jackson.
Next resignation up is for Alyssa McCoffin. For the middle school, seventh grade ELA teacher. Resignation submitted on June 19th, 2025. Last day of employment would be June 19th.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Jackson. A motion has been made. Oh, I'm so sorry. Someone like to make a motion?
Sure, I would like to motion to approve the resignation of Alyssa as middle school ELA teacher effective June 19th, 2025, pending receipt of liquidated damages.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Hallmeyer. Motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Macon. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
And just to clarify, we did receive the bid damages today, so you can keep it same.
We can leave it
No,
the same, but.
Let me know what they were.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. So, Ms. Bacon seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor, raise hand and or aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries unanimously, 7-0, and we wish Alyssa her future endeavors much success, and once a Falcon, always a Falcon.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Did we get letters from them?
Well, for Kate Campagna, she sent an email confirming that she will not be returning to the school district on June 23rd. I'm sorry, June 23rd. She sent an email.
Okay, yeah.
And then for Alyssa McCoffin, her contract was approved last board meeting. And then since then, she had requested that she be released from that contract.
Okay, yeah, I just know we usually get whatever they submit, so that's why I asked.
Thank you. All right, let's go on to our item number C, approval of rescinded teacher contracts.
The approval of rescinded teacher contracts is no longer because Alyssa McCoffin, at the time the agenda was created, she had requested to rescind her contract, but today she did make good with the liquidated damages. So it was considered as a resignation.
Okay.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, it was actually Kate Campagna, who was a teacher that had not responded to her contract. So, but she did resign today. Had she not resigned, we would have had to rescind the contract because she didn't sign it by June 15th. She was the only staff member that hadn't addressed the contract one way or another. So, but because she did end up resigning in a very, very short way, but she did, we accept that as resignation. We don't need to have the board rescind their contract. She has officially declined it. So.
Okay.
So she never signed a contract?
She did not. Correct. No, we had, as you know, we always kind of watched the end of that time frame, June 15th. But that was we only had one this year, and again, then she did resign. So.
And that, we're talking about Kate.
Correct.
Yes.
All right. Let's go on to our next item, 5D, treasurer's report. Mr. Clement.
Yeah, so I have the May Treasurers Report that we presented to you on board docs. Not a whole lot to talk about. It is still trending very positively as we have talked about for the last several months. When you do look at overall revenue and expenses, we are very close to where we were fiscal year to date last year. So there are some things that are happening right now that I think will help a little bit as well, although the result of this somewhat of a mad flurry of purchasing that we're trying to deal with as well. But we are it should all be, I think we're still going to be in a pretty good space. The one area that I think will be our largest challenge is going to be on the special education revenue side. Our Medicaid revenue is down a little bit than what we had hoped, but in addition to that, we did get our final number from the state for categorical aid for this year. And that is the thing we talk about in the budget cycle every year or every 2 years about trying to improve the amount of money or increase the amount of money that schools get, because that's a percentage of the previous year's aidable expenses. And we heard a lot about 33% this year, 33%, but what happens is that the state only they put a sum sufficient, or they don't put a sum sufficient amount, they can put a pot of money there, which they think will be 33%. But until you get all the expenses, then you don't really know. And so it actually turned out to be just over 30.5%. So that 3% difference on $1 million claim, on a potential $1 million, is what's bringing us in about $50,000 less than we had anticipated. So we're going to end up about $980,000 in total for special education categorical aid, and we had $1,030,000 budgeted. So, but one of the things we are doing is, as you had directed earlier, we are looking to increase our claiming. So I do anticipate we'll make up some of that revenue with additional things that we'll spend through IDEA. So we're still finalizing over the next, I'll be doing some things over the next week, and then Mr. Paul, when he takes over, will finalize those last minute claims once all of our payroll is done. But other than that, I would say we are still tracking very well. And, when you see numbers that are within a point of each other, it's pretty good to see that we're heading in the right direction. And again, last year we had a surplus. So,
Questions, board members, questions for Mr. Clemick in relationship to the May treasurer's report? Look nice and clean. No question. All right, let's go on to our next item. And our next item is approval of the 25-26 district insurance coverages. Mr. Clemick.
yes, so this is the biggest item that I'm going to talk about tonight. Most of the other items are review and like second discussions of them. So this is our annual renewal of all of our, what I call our other property line, our property and other insurance lines, as opposed to health insurance and dental employee insurance. So again, we use Gallagher Risk Management Services as our consultant. They take us out to the market every year to see what the possibilities are of renewal. We are seeing very favorable renewals in all of our lines. Workers' comp is a separate thing, which we'll talk about in a second, but everything else was very much in line. I have the chart on the second page, which shows you what last year's cost was, what this year's cost is, and the difference. And in a lot of cases, we are outperforming the market, where a lot of other districts and other K-12 are seeing, maybe an increase 8 to 10%. We might be seeing 5 or 6. One of the biggest things, at least dollar amount, that you see is in our package, which includes property insurance. And the real increase in that is not the rate. The rate is static, but because our value has gone up. So they're assessing our value to about $125 million of property, which is about $10,000 up, and that's what's causing that increase. Everything else being the same, we're at a very tiny increase. The one caveat to that is that, and that's going across the board with in the K-12 space, that insurance carriers, if they're covering more than $100 million, they are increasing the deductible to $25,000. So we made a change last year from 5 to 10. They're wasting the 10 to 25 on us this year. And so that also obviously is part of the cost mitigation, because they're going to cover less expenses when they have that higher deductible. But yeah, positive news. I mean, we had the claim obviously this past year with the water damage in the high school office, but outside of that, we've had a pretty clean situation with property. So hopefully that will continue. But otherwise, the carriers for the equipment breakdown, educator legal liability, automotive, our umbrella rates are going up across markets as well. But the one that really shocked me, and Kara, we were excited, cyber liability, for the first time is actually flat. That's been the one that percentage-wise has been jumping. Yeah, so we're staying the same rate as what it was last year, 14,000, almost 15,000. So that was really nice. So overall, that part of the package, it's a good story, and I think we did a good job, and Gallagher did a good job in getting our renewals. On the workers' compensation piece, we've obviously been talking about this for several months now with our mod history and where we are at. After numerous attempts by Gallagher to find a suitor, we were not able to. So we are officially, we paid the bill today. in the the state insurance pool. So what that means is that and they set the rate. The rate is $190,000 basically for the upcoming school year, which is a significant increase from what it was. Basically they calculate what the rate would be, and then they apply our mod to it. So what the standard rate is, we're paying 2.18 times what that is. So it's not a great financial story, but we are set up for that. We will have a third party. They will assign us to an insurance company that will serve as our third party administrator for claims, but won't offer a lot of other services because they're just part of the pool they have to maintain. They get assigned these these companies and organizations from time to time, and they're just going to help do like the paperwork part. But Gallagher will help us and meet with us to have additional conversations over the course of the year to help improve our safety record and help work that mod down. One of the things that Trina and I were able to meet with Gallagher yesterday. And one of the things they did point out is that this may not be a 1 year situation because of the 3 year history that they use to evaluate the rates, and it isn't this year, it's the last 3 years. And so we went up from 1.1 to 1.8 down to 2.19. So it's very likely we may be in a similar situation now, maybe with a good trend. You know, a company might look at us and say, like, we feel like you're in the right direction, and maybe it would be worth investigating. But just to prepare that it might be a year or two before we're able to get off of the pool. But other than that, again, everything else stays the same with the carriers and the packages. If you have any other questions about the insurance coverages, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we're recommending the motion to read as presented to accept the renewals of the carriers and the lines.
I don't necessarily have a question, but I have more of just a little bit of an inquiry around the workers' comp piece. And, you know, obviously there's a lot of incidents, right, over the past few years. And I feel like I recall hearing a number of incidents around like slip and falls and that kind of thing this past winter. And so I'm wondering, you know, when you talk about trying to be on trend for some of those things to dissipate, obviously nothing will ever be 100%. We know that. What sort of staffing do we have in place to be able to address some of those things, right? So between actual Brown Deer staff, but also folks we contract with to be able to help to address some of those things.
If you're talking like weather related, obviously, you know, that is, you know, Matt works with our contractors to make sure that we are, you know, that they're here. One of the first things to get the lot as, you know, as clear as possible. And we do have staff that our daytime custodial staff will help doing shoveling around doors and salting and things like that. And it's, you know, it all depends on the snow event, you know, whether it's something that is over and done with, or whether it's, you know, we've had somewhere it's been, you know, a couple of years ago, we had that sheer ice where all over the village, it was just, you know, ice everywhere. And so there's nothing you could have done about that. So there is that part. And certainly Matt will continue to work, you know, on working with our contractors and our staff to be as on it as possible during those events. But I think the other part is that it's also an educational piece for our staff, just to help them realize that there's a safety part for them too, that it isn't just, you know, it's making sure that you're being careful when you're going into the buildings, that you're not running late and you're running in again, or you're going around something that you shouldn't have. You're not walking on the sidewalk where the salt is, or you're running, and maybe instead of, you know, we talk about penguin walk when it's, you know, snowy out, and if you shuffle your feet to help prevent the chance of falling. So it is part of that too, because I mean, the staff and you know, that'll be part of the conversation, I'm sure, this fall when staff return, because obviously this money that we're spending on insurance is money that we can't spend on staff, whether it's people or salaries or whatever the case may be. So, you know, the faster we can kind of turn the ship around and get us in a better place. And I think it's really engaging in a culture of safety, so that people, you know, it gets into the see something, say something, not just, you know, so that someone is being unsafe, we're stopping that, we're fixing it right away, so that the chance of someone else, you know, getting injured is lessened. But I will say too, I mean, the reality is school building, there are kids. I mean, I know we did have, I don't know that it was a serious injury, but we did have somebody slip, or maybe somebody had some water that spilled on the floor and nobody said anything and somebody walked around. So it is it's hard to prevent everything, but I think if we just, again, try to, with students and staff, just to be as safe as possible and get that message out there. I think that will help. I don't know that we've been as deliberate as it could be, so I think that, any messaging will be important. I think just helping them understand this is the result of, not being able to be careful and cautious and we all do our part. I believe that those resources will be able to get redirected, something that everyone would enjoy.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that, just and thinking about you, like, if there's an opportunity to bring on additional staff to be able to support some of those efforts. I mean, yes, education is everything, right? And folks are always careful. But I mean, sometimes we just don't have the manpower that we need. And so that's something that I also consider in terms of making sure we have enough people to support their work.
All right. Any other questions? Hearing seen none, would someone like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve the property, inland marine, crime, general liability, educator, legal liability, automotive, and umbrella insurance coverage renewals with American Family Insurance Company, Wright Specialty Insurance, the equipment breakdown insurance renewal with Hartford Steam Boiler Inspection and Insurance Company, the cyber liability insurance renewal with underwriters at Lloyd's, London, and workers' compensation insurance coverage through the Wisconsin Workers' Compensation Insurance Pool for the 2025-26 school year as presented.
I just want to qualify, I don't know if I heard the word home. It is American Family.
I was gonna ready to say, if we
Yeah.
can make sure, if we read that American Family Home Insurance.
Home insurance, it is an American Family, the one.
Right.
American Family Home.
Insurance company. Yeah, yeah. All right. Thank you very much. A motion has been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Ashley. Motion made seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor will raise hand and/or aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries unanimously. All right. Let's go on to our next item is discussion of potential approval of the contract with Go Right Way. Mr. Clemick?
Yeah, so this again is a second reading of the contract. We did have some conversations 2 weeks ago regarding the contract. One of the things that we are reviewing is actually, honestly, the number of kids riding the bus, because the transportation report that we're filing with UPI is significantly lower than it was last year. It does impact a number of different things. So we will take a more kind of aggressive approach as to how to kind of analyze where our ridership is at, and it may cause the board to maybe make a decision at some point. If, as an example, if we start the school year expecting a certain number of routes, and then we determine that there just isn't that ridership, do we confirm that families, if they're not participating, do we unroute them so that we can go down to 7 routes? So that will be the larger question. What they did do, and as you know, and if you have any questions on any of the other parts that we talked about last week, feel free to think about it. The one that was a little bit new that is relevant to this is the recapturing of some of their overhead costs if we were to reduce a route. So what I've asked them to do, which they have done on the new Exhibit 1 schedule, which was just got to me today, so it's in the hard copy that you have in front of you. So if you look at the last page of the contract of pricing, they list, and it's a similar number that I showed you in the memo over the weekend, that they're going to lock in pricing for both 8 routes and 7 routes. So it's showing you right now what that looks like. What I didn't want to have happen was have us start on 8 routes and then go down to 7. And then if we ever went up to 8, using that 7 number as the base and just multiplying it by 8, because that's like adding extra overhead. So basically, we'll track both of those numbers over the course of the life of the contract. So as CPI gets applied in future years, we'll have both of those numbers available. So you'll be able to see the two things. And that way, if we do bounce, I can't imagine we're going to go to 6. I also would, unless we have a whole bunch of kids show up at 29. So I think it'll float in those two, in between those two. And so that'll at least let you see right off the bat what the expectation is. So the elimination of a home to school route, a large bus double run going down to 7 routes would not completely eliminate the route, but it would reduce our costs. And I showed you on the current schedule for next year, it would be about $30,000 that you could save on going down to 7.
I wanted to make a comment. It would be nice to figure out a correlation between the number of kids that are writing in our tardy and absenteeism. I remember when my daughter was riding the bus, we would skip across the streets to Deer Run if she missed the bus. And it might just be down the street. If we couldn't get down the street quick enough, we would just go across the street. But everybody might not have that same option of being able to go over. And I've been looking at a lot of research online where they're talking about like cleanup buses or whatever, where the kids, there's like some type of a sweep to pick up kids if they're late so that we don't have it. I don't know what if we have an absenteeism problem, but if we do, it would be interesting to figure out whether or not that's one of the reasons. You know, I know we have that something about follow the bus or whatever. I can't remember what it is. Here comes the bus. But kids are still late sometimes. So it would be nice to just know, you know, how many of the kids are missing school on a regular basis because they're missing that bus for whatever reason they're not getting there. So absenteeism and tardyism, and see what the correlation is.
Do you think adding?
Hold on, wait.
Just first, I wanted to find out the correlation, and then we can kind of look at that later as far as to see. I would like to see a cleanup bus if that's an issue, but if it's not an issue, then I'm just throwing something out there. I just want to know what the numbers are.
When you say.
Wait, stop, hold on, wait, first, wait, Ms. Welch, hold on, first. Ms. Farrington is first, then Ms. Robinson, and then Ms. Welch.
I was saying that I was wondering on that Here Comes the Bus app, if parents can actually call their kids in tardy, because when my kids rode the bus, if they weren't gonna be on the bus, I would call. So I would never lose that route, so I don't know if that's a capability, so parents can let the bus know, then you kind of have an idea.
I don't think that's in the app, but I will also say, not to break news, but there's probably going to be a switch in the app next year for us at some point. Right Way is looking at another vendor, and we happen to be at the end of the cycle of the contract for them. So I don't know what the new capabilities are, but there's no price difference for us, but there may be some enhanced functionality. We'll have to wait to see exactly what that looks like. And certainly we certainly wouldn't say if you're not, you miss a bus route, that would be a reason not to include them. I think it's when what would be interesting to see is if we have families that just, during registration say, oh, sure, let's sign up for the bus. And then the bus is routed, but 9 times out of 10 or whatever that the students aren't using. So I think that's just the question is, does that happen or not? And maybe not, maybe it's just that we have, half the kids there, every other day. And that's the number we have, but we have to support in case, we had a situation where.
That was in case, like she was talking about the sweep. So if the kid missed.
Oh, it's like.
That was.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But it was also it would also hit everything, like my kid's not riding the bus this week or this month, but maybe next month they are. So like if parents could easily communicate.
Potentially, yeah, we can do that.
All right, Ms. Robinson.
Well, Ms. Macon answered the question I had for her, but another question that I had was what process do we currently use if someone is not going to ride the bus now? They just have to extend courtesy to say they're not riding anymore?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
do we not do any follow-up on that?
Well, we don't take attendance every day. We don't swipe IDs when kids get on the bus, so we don't have a daily record. We have our DPI, we have our DPI attendance reports that they do, where for the entire week, they will take attendance for everyone. Obviously, at the beginning of the year, they're very in tune to make sure kids are on the right bus, and they know. And I think perhaps after a while, they'll know which, if they start to know kids by name, they'll identify which ones are regulars and which ones may be sporadic. And maybe at that certain point, we look at the list and they don't have no idea who these students are because they've never ridden the bus. I think those are the times we have to identify. Again, I don't know. I was shocked by the drop, and that's where, and again, because we don't get daily attendance because we don't have that, I'm sure if we had readers on the bus, which would cost money to actually track who's actually on the bus, and we'd have to have everybody with an ID and all that. We could have a more accurate information, but I just think we need to look more closely as to what the ridership is actually like. And obviously, but the bus ridership will change. It's a nice day. It's going to be a different story. If it's raining out at 3 o'clock, you're going to have maybe more kids on the bus. The days that there are sporting events, it's one thing, and days that there aren't, it's another. So not that we can predict every day what it's going to be like. I don't expect it to be really consistent, but just to get a sense of, are there 50 to 100 kids that aren't on the bus? Now, in our case, there were over 100 kids that were routed, but were not there those 3 weeks that those attendance was taken. So then the question is, were they there at all or not? Or maybe it just happened to be those 3 weeks. So again, if they're not there, I can't count them. So I think just looking at it more closely and getting a better sense of what that will look like.
Okay. Ms. Welch?
No question was answered.
Okay. And then the other thing too is if everybody remembers, everybody lives on the other side of Brown Deer Road, they're automatically routed for the bus, correct? Or did that change? All right. But everybody on the south side of Brown Deer Road or whatever have you, only if they're in kindergarten, right? They get.
We have a hazardous, we went through the analysis some years ago. We had that the county sheriff comes in and determines what the hazardous zone is. And so with the addition of, the sidewalk in the last 50 decade, now going down Dean, provided, we would open up some places that were traditionally bused. But it is, certainly it's 75% of the village is access to busing.
Yep.
So because of the lack of sidewalks and, any kind of relatively dangerous street that they have to cross. So it's a majority of the students would have access to it. But again, I mean, if you look at the pickup and drop off at the elementary school, there's a lot of kids that are getting driven every day. So again, whether all the buses are needed or not, I don't know.
That's true. And then I guess that's it was one thing to potentially really look at whether or not we need the 8 buses or do we need the 7 buses in relationship to that, because we also know a lot of high schoolers, once they get their license and stuff, they don't get on the buses anymore. You know what I mean? So again, that's just something that we'll look at. We'll have if we do go a right way, for them to be able to track for us and maybe be able to get us that information so we'll know kind of definitively kind of how many routes do we actually really need.
And they've agreed to do DPI-like attendance reporting more frequently in the fall so that we can actually get some good data, and then you can take a better look at it.
Well, even for dismissal.
Well, I think, I'm sorry, Ms. Welch, I'm so sorry. I think Ms. Macon had her hand first, or what she's getting ready to
I
say.
think she was getting ready to say the same thing I'm getting ready to say about morning versus evening. If I miss the bus in the morning, I still want to catch the bus in the evening. Is that kind of?
Well, the route is done. It's already, everybody that's on there, the route is done. So.
Well, my question was really about the process in terms of tracking who does and does not ride the bus. And I'm wondering, like, at dismissal, as an example, don't teachers, like, there's a process, I'm assuming, for folks to get, hey, we hold Route 29 and room 203. Like, are the teachers not kind of checking off who goes to what route to know?
Elementary, they certainly do. Not
Not high school, middle school.
But elementary school, they get dismissed by a classroom, and I think the teachers would have a good sense. And then because I do know I've been down there several times, and you do go hear over the walkie-talkie that so-and-so is getting picked up, and whether the kids are going out front to the bus or to the back for parent pickup because something's changed that day, whatever. So it does happen.
And there's a lot of holding buses.
Sorry, that's right.
Make sure that
That's right. And now we have to pick my kid up, which should pick my kid up, yes.
Is that for all students?
Elementary
school, middle and high school is.
So middle school, and high school, we tend to hold the buses until the kids have exited the building, just to make sure everybody's gotten on a bus that needs to. You hear the calls, all clear, hallways are clear, all students are out, and then, the number of times we hold, like, somebody ran back to grab the phone, yeah, we're going, so.
Yep. All right. Any other further questions?
You said there's an app.
So that was the approval that we made for the Pick My Kid app. Yeah. So, and that was teacher driven. But it's an app that uses geofencing. So the parents download the app, and then as it enters in the GPS kind of area, then what happens is then the district gets a notification saying that that Kara's come in to pick up Kevin, and then they know that they can call the student down, to be ready, so that it avoids like the lines of children hanging out on the sidewalk or inclement weather. So, and then it allows parents to identify somebody else who's picking things up, right? But prior to that, it used to be a phone call and a spreadsheet, which is fine, but it's hard to manage and things like that. So it does give parents a little bit more control, and then it allows us to kind of track, no, I gave Catrice to mom, that kind of thing, so.
And I was just gonna say, go ahead.
I just a point of clarification. So this miscellaneous item, The like GPS is different than what you're talking about?
That would be, I imagine, for the app.
That's not fun.
Like,
Okay, okay,
yeah.
okay.
Right, that's, I get on the bus.
To find the location where
Got
your
it.
child is.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause the app does show the bus drives around. So that's why, again, I'm not suggesting that, we'll automatically be able to go down to 7 buses or what have you, but I do know that, there are a lot of parents who pick up, and so I think as long as we're looking at opportunities to save money down the road, that, you know, we should look and have an analysis of whether or not 8 is the right.
Almost $40,000, so, yeah. All right, any other further questions? Here you see them, so like to make a motion?
Dr. Beagle, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2025-2030 transportation contract, which Go Right Way is presented.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bacon. Motion has been made. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Ashley. Motion made second. Any further discussion? The only thing is they're gonna go right way. They're gonna get with us probably in October-ish. To kind of let us know potentially what the ridership has been looking like.
Well, I would certainly look at that first month when they do, you know, when they.
That's what I'm saying, like October.
But October we'll review with them, right? Normally it's in November, but Quinn will work with them right off the bat to get a better sense of what those numbers look like.
All right. Okay, so all in favor, will raise hand and/or aye. Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously, 720. All right, let's go on to our next item.
Now we talked about the 7 to 8. There's a lot of new housing coming into the district. So I'm just curious to know if we might need to go to 9 at some point. So just wanted to put that out there. Keep
You know,
It may be though that the 8 you'd stick with 8 and would be counted differently. Especially the more congregate housing where, you know, like some of the apartments on the north side of Green Bay Road, you know, like north of Pick and Save, like there's one stop and that bus will go pick up a bunch of kids there and then come on down. So those routes are relatively fast because there's.
they meet there. They meet there.
I'm not thinking number of stops, I'm thinking number of children.
Right, and it'll depend on what these new developments, if they interact, because there aren't a lot of kids at the Bevy or at the, you know, Green Link or the 2 in the original village, but we'll certainly see as other ones, and then whatever happens at the south of the marketplace.
Okay. All right, let's go on to our next item, which is approval of device lease. Is that Mr. Turner?
Yeah, myself and Kevin, you approved the purchase of the devices so that we can secure them. And then now we agreed that the lease was the method that we wanted to use to finance those devices. And so we sought out 2 bids and we are recommending, we've attached them in the quote there. The American Capital lease quote is the less expensive. There's also no document fees or anything like that. So otherwise they were right side by side. One ended up being a little cheaper. Both have the $1 buyout, you know, so then the devices are ours, which is important based on the plan that you chose, because then those devices after they're used by senior staff in middle school, then they'll go down toward the elementary school. So that's it.
All right. Questions?
So I have a question. I know you talked about how often some of the children break devices. So what is the replacement policy like?
So these devices have ADP on them, so accidental damage and protection for 4 years. So those are good for 4 years. And so as long as it is not intentional, there are some damages which are intentional. And I've worked with Kathy Anwar to update the prices of those devices. So but then the families are responsible. If you remember the TikTok challenge where they stick the paper clip into the, yeah. So we had 3 students who were charged for the full cost of the device because even though they were insured under accidental damage protection, they were not, you know, so then, you know, so they're charged, you know, as a family then for the cost of that device. So that's how we handle it. We have the vendor that we chose in part because we would like to. They're the biggest dog in the game, locally, like hundreds of thousands of devices all over the country. So, but their depot is right here in Menominee Falls. And, so they come if we need them repaired sometimes, but if it's a broken screen, like we like to call it like our third man, you know, on the tech team, because when they're damaged, we send them out. They courier them, they take them away, they fix them, they bring them back, and
Okay, just wanted to make sure we don't have another workers' comp situation.
oh, no. So we have, you know, we build in some excess so that we're never denying a child an opportunity to have a device. So, and sometimes stuff happens, you know, a headphone jack breaks, or sometimes it's not intentional, it's just accidental. What we do, is we do charge those students for the cost of that, you know, that screen replacement or things like that. If it's one of these where they're picking it up and holding my hand and things like that. So, and that does, it's just one of those things, and we're very transparent with, you know, with the costs of those repairs and stuff, with things that are not insured under ADP and so on. So, yeah, but yeah. And that's part of the handbook and the registration and things like that, that all families can
Sign off on.
they know.
All right, any other questions?
I'm sorry, Ms. Barry, working.
I just had a question about replacement. So like if a child intentionally broke a computer after 4 years, are they responsible for the price of the computer at that time, or are they responsible for a brand new computer? Do you understand?
Yep, I do. Yep. And then we don't let them keep them for 4 years. We require all of our students to turn them in every year. So this is our busy season. So we check them out at the beginning of the year. They turn them in at the end of the year. Summer school, they come back, they turn them in on a Friday, they come back on a Monday. We give them a different device so that we can check, repair, clean, you know, all of that. So, it is the full cost, like, so if they intentionally damage the device and it's destroyed, you know, we've had horrible situations where a family had a fire, you know, like extenuating circumstances, like a clock was stolen and their device was in it. Like yes, you know, so as the district, we don't, it's something what it is, right? And so, but when we do charge, like, so if I intentionally broke my device, you know, then I would be charged for the cost of the device, the replacement device as it is, right? Because it might, and it could be more, it could be less, because if I have to buy that new device, it's not maybe going to be $425 plus the, you know, $65 for accidental damage protection or so on. So it is the cost of the replacement. So if that makes sense.
Will someone like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve a 4-year lease agreement with American Capital for a total equipment cost of $480,540 for 4 years, which equates to $128,170.71 per year, with a $1 buyout at the end of the lease agreement.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Robinson. The motion has been made. Do we have a second? I think Ms. Farrington, motion made and second. Any further discussion? You can see none. All in favor will raise hand and/or aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? And see that motion carries unanimously, 7-0. All right, let's go on to our next item. Is item H, approval of the preliminary budget, 25-26 preliminary budget. Mr. Clinic.
Right, well, it's a culmination of several months, and it's only really the beginning part. Is hasn't been a lot decided at this point. The state, as you may have noticed, apparently in sort of standstill in the legislature, where there's something going on where they haven't figured out what they want to do for the budget. So the chance of having a budget a week from today is probably slim. The state will continue to operate without it, but school districts will still wonder what they'll be able to do going forward. So there's a lot of questions yet to be answered, and we won't have those answers, you know, for a little bit. But nonetheless, we have to have a budget. So I'm presenting to you tonight the final draft of the preliminary budget, which hopefully we'll approve. I won't go through everything because we did go through quite a bit of it 2 weeks or a month ago. I will just highlight some things that have changed. And again, it's very, very preliminary because things are changing. I could change it every day if I wanted to. I don't, but so I'm just gonna stick with what we have at this point. So as a reminder again, and you'll get a better sense in a few weeks as we start to close out the fiscal year. The fiscal year ends next Monday. What our final how that year will end and how our revenue and expenses will look, and whether that deficit of $873,000 will come in more favorably or not. And I believe will come in significantly more favorably, which will again provide you a little more leeway going into this upcoming school year. So there is the deficit question. And then of course, we are running another deficit this year. The number has gone up a little bit, and I'll talk about why in this version of it. But again, it's still also, we look at it as kind of a worst case scenario. There's still additional things that can change it and turn it positive. But we are, again, sharing this with the community because we do recognize the fact that at some point we may need additional financial help in the district as it currently operates. So I'm going to jump ahead to we talked about all the enrollment projections. We don't have any additional information on open enrollment in or out. But again, I would remind the board that I think the enrollment projections will be very important, that as the summer starts to wane down, that if you have an opportunity and you see a class size that might be a little bit lower, this might be the opportunity to backfill a little bit and perhaps open up a few more seats on the open enrollment inside to provide some additional revenue coming in and to support the size of the district that we want to be. Because, at a certain point, if we continue to drop from 1650 we were a few years ago down into 1600 or in the 1500s, it's hard to have all of those opportunities for the students that we want to provide when we don't have as many students and the financial support isn't quite there. So again, those numbers will shift with the open enrollment in and out and the costs going forward. But I did want to again just touch base, just remind everybody what our revenue limit projection is. Again, with the $325 increase, I'm looking at page 7 right now. You're following along. The base revenue per member is going up to $13,200. The $325 increase. Our membership average does drop a bit, so we do have this declining enrollment exemption that we will have for this year. That money will not be there the following year. We do have a little bit of money again for prior year open enrollment that will get added in. These are students that were counted last fall that are in the open enrollment program. And then the voucher exemptions, again, that number, I just kept it flat because we have no idea what that will look like. Whatever that number is, that will have an offsetting expense. So both revenue and expense will be equal. So if that goes up $300,000, we'll have more revenue, but there's also a $300,000 expense. So it's not additional money to spend. So I just leave it flat for now, but it would impact the tax levy in the end as to how high that would go. So we are looking right now again at a revenue of about $24.5 million through the exemptions and with exemptions. And then right now, again, the question on equalization aid, we did hear, although again, things can change. It sounded like there was not going to be additional money in the equalization aid pool. So it will just be recalculated based on spending from last year. And if Walker Public Schools gets their paperwork done or homework done, and we actually have data for those for that district as well to help when we do those calculations. So right now I just left it flat, but it's possible that will go up a little bit, which would provide a little more flexibility in the levy. And so right now we're looking at about a $7.5 million tax levy in Fund 10. No tax levy needed in Fund 38. When we work in our current property tax levy with Fund 39, on the current schedule, you would see the tax levy drop about 6.8% or about $750,000. Again, all things being equal. Again, I would recommend that you would strongly consider over levying again and keeping the levy at least flat and then potentially defeasing more debt just to kind of lock in some of that money for a potential referendum question if that comes to pass. But right now there is I don't account for that over levying at this point. So we're just using the number as it is. Going to our operational revenue, again, this is very similar. Not a whole lot has changed because none of the numbers have changed. We will be awaiting our final federal grant allocations. Some of that will be based on what rolled over from what I don't claim this year, what will not be available next year, and then what the initial allocations are. But right now we're looking at a $27.4 million revenue side. I don't think anything changed in here. yeah, we're still waiting for some additional information. Again, until the open enrollment in and out numbers are set, we don't really know what'll be going on there. On the expense side, for Fund 10, we are starting to put in actual salaries data for some of the positions that have been open. You will notice that health insurance is actually higher than it was last year. That's one of the fears I have when we have a price decrease, is that we actually did have several people jump on insurance. And then obviously some of the folks that we have hired maybe are taking insurance when the person behind them or that they're replacing did not. Now there are still open positions, and all the open positions have family insurance assigned. So that number can still come down, but that is where we are with that. I did increase the amounts for utilities. People transportation reflects the contract you just approved earlier this evening. Have not changed the number for open enrollment out. We're kind of leaving that. I'm hoping that because we are seeing a trend of the number of students kind of going down a little bit. If that trend continues, hopefully most of that would offset any increase that the state would give on a per student basis. But again, that number may have to be padded a little bit more. And then just kind of looking through, again, with the transfer to Fund 27 is still scheduled to tick up. But I will say that every year that I've done this, the transfer to Fund 27 has never been as high as what's budgeted, because there's always things happening on that. But we do want to watch what that transfer looks like, because that does involve all of our special education costs, which do go up. But we also want to be careful for maintenance of effort purposes, so we don't end up overspending one year and then having to maintain that going forward unnecessarily. So right now I do have a $28.7 million expense line in Fund 10. And again, I think I highlighted all these. Anything that you saw that was under review has been reviewed at this point. We did talk about the fact that the pupil transportation was increased. Utilities, I put up only a slight amount. We are expecting additional money to be transferred from Fund 10 to Fund 50 next year, so that will actually help offset some of any potential utility increases. And then again, the voucher and open enrollment, we're projecting flat right now until we know. All of your property and related insurance is in this report now, updated, and that's another reason why the deficit is a little bit higher when you add the extra amount for workers' compensation included. That's a big piece of it. Also important, I just wanted to remind everyone too, is that there is a chunk of personal property aid that comes from the state. It's $165,000. That was a new thing that was added this year. And again, last year, DPI told us to put it outside of the revenue limit. It was extra money that we could spend. Governor has said that money really should be under the revenue limit, or is recommending moving it and clarifying it, because the state legislature didn't really make it clear as to what they want to do with those funds. So most districts are including it under the revenue limit, which turns into tax relief. It doesn't turn into, if that's a decision that comes through the legislative piece and they say that the 2023 exempt property tax amount would be outside the revenue limit, then that's $165,000 that you could spend or would reduce the deficit. So that is out there as well. One other piece I just wanted to mention too was that, and I know Kara is still working on it, but common school funds, which is a special amount of money that we get from the state for library purchases, library and related media purchases. I don't think we're going to spend it all. They also increased it significantly. This year we had budgeted, I think, $90,000 and it came in at 120 something. So we may not have it all spent this year. That's something that has to be put into a restricted fund balance. So it will count in Fund 10, but that money has to be spent on library items. That's something that Kara would work on including in her budget for next year. I don't know. We'll have some residual.
Well, some, I think it might end up being about, I tried really, really hard. It's like Christmas, so, but it's just, yeah. So it might be about 10 or 12, I think. Because they increased it from, again, the finance amount. So the math that I did, even with the increase, was even more when I saw what they got in April.
Right, we don't find out until April what the amount is, and then, the years. So you can maybe get some additional purchases, or again, you can save it for next year, but it just that is kind of segregated.
Is that reflected in this Fund 10?
It is. It's reflected under. I think Common School Fund is part of the state. State library. That's where it's listed right there. So
Okay,
I had 120 because I don't know what next year will be, if it will continue to grow up or go down. But that's where that is. And then So that basically talks about Fund 10, and then I briefly will talk about Fund 27. Again, one of the biggest things we're challenged by is the revenue side, just because the state is not keeping up with its promises. And so it's, what do you budget when you're told it's going to be 33% or 35%? What do you put in there? And then it comes in significantly less. So we'll be, probably more cautious this year. That's why I'm not really changing anything. I have heard that they are talking now potentially about increasing that. I've heard 35% potentially for year one, and there's a small stair step. It's not to the 60% or 90% that's been discussed, but there is a possibility there. But again, we'll continue to monitor what the budget, what the folks say at the state level. Also, the federal IDA grants, how much we claim on those and use that for revenue will be part of the equation. I am planning on, right now I'm budgeting a little bit more. One of the challenges we have, and unfortunately Ms. Ramos is not here tonight, but we are seeing a significant uptick in outside placements right now. And that number is growing and it is incredibly expensive. So you're going to see when all is said and done, it's going to be well over $100,000, probably closer to getting approaching $200,000 in outside placements for a handful of students. And that, again, these are students that probably will be here for a while, so we have to plan for those costs going forward as well.
So they're outside of the district, is that what you mean?
They're not, they live here, they are residents, but they're placed not here, they're placed in another facility. Like
Outside of the
district. Yeah.
I just have a quick question, and you don't have to answer this, but the percentage of special ed students in the district is ballpark.
Ms. Ramos? No, she's not here. I would say it's like 16, 17%.
I thought it was 7. I thought you said before, I thought it was, the report that we had was like 17%.
And yeah,
Our students, especially.
I haven't looked at it in a while, but I think
17.
the reality is it's not just the number of students, it's also that we have students coming with much higher needs.
Yeah.
We have students that require either extra staff to be a part, or there's certain equipment we've had to purchase for individuals, or you have these outside placement situations. And so those costs are increasing. So the strategy that Quinn and I have talked about it, because there is you have heard in the budget discussion about high cost special education. That's one of the things they're talking about. And how that works is that the first $30,000 in cost is paid for by the district, and then the remaining cost, $30,000 and up, there's a percentage that you will get the following year if you claim it as high cost special education. Well, the challenge is that you don't know what that is, and then you still have to front those costs in the year you're in. So we haven't had that many yet. So what I have been doing is using IDA funding when that happens to help offset those costs, because it is one for one. I mean, we put that amount in, and we get dollar for dollar. We get it, and we know we're going to get it. We get it this year. What that looks like, though, at some point when the IDA funding may not cover all those costs, and you do have to look at that. That's those are things that will have to be examined. But that, because even with the high cost data, when they're talking about adding some additional funding, they're still talking about, I think, in 30% of that 32 whatever number, you may get a 30% coverage. Well, that helps a little bit, but it doesn't $100,000 cost to provide services for a student. $30,000 you're getting 30% on the next 70. You're still paying the vast majority of those costs, and you don't get that money until a year later. Yeah. So special education will be something we'll continue to watch. Right now, I have the budget hitting $4.5 million. Again, revenue and expenses have equal each other. So that transfer from Fund 10 right now is just over $3 million budgeted. And we talked about all the concerns there. So from an operational standpoint, with the fund right now, the fund balance, the deficit is now projected to be $1,356,000. It's still within tolerance of where we are. So I'm not overly concerned in the long term, and hopefully this budget will come in positively as the budgets have been. No pressure. But we'll see how the year goes. But I did share with you then the fund balance chart updated. Now this shows a much straighter line down than it will be, because the 2025 year is based on what the budget was, the $800,000 deficit. I think that's going to flatten, and it will give you a little more room going into the following year. Any questions on Fund 10 or 27? Those obviously is the bulk of what you pay attention to, but I just wanted to make sure. Wanted to highlight the things that have changed since those are the funds you saw previously. If not, then real quickly, we talked about Fund 21. Fund
I was in there
21,
one, I was like, wait a minute, out of order. Just 21 and 27.
Because I combined 10 and 27 because they're interrelated. 21 is its own thing, so those two are married together because how Fund 27 performs impacts Fund. That's why I combined them. And those are the two you see on there. Fund 21, again, that's the trust for activity accounts, things like that. We don't really budget that because that is varying, but you may do something closer to the end or closer to the school year starting if you have a better sense of what's happening. Fund 38, non-referendum debt. We have no non-referendum debt, so that is a big zero. Referendum debt, this is the schedule that is ready for the upcoming school year. You will notice that the revenues and expenses never line up. They don't actually equal because the revenue is based on the calendar year of 2026 because the tax levy is the revenue for Fund 39. So we look at the payments from March and September of 2026. But budgetarily, we are looking at the payments from September of 2025 and spring of 2026. So they don't line up. So those numbers will always be off. But we do account for both and we make sure we have enough money. And then the good and kind of exciting news is when you look at our total debt that we have right now, this is projected as of June 30th with the $1.1 million defeasance that was completed will be just over $30 million, $30.4 million. And in 2026, one of our debts may fall off, the final payment for the WRS unfunded liability, which is something that was done years ago when people realized that the WRS wasn't fully funded. Everybody had to borrow money to pay for it, and this is the end of that. So that will end in 2026. Any questions on debt? Because that's obviously a big part of it. Otherwise, Fund 46 is available for long-term capital improvements. Just the 10-year plan. We did have $100,000 budgeted to spend this year. I don't anticipate doing that, but you will have the option as Quinton finishes up and they close out the fiscal year. You have until July 30th to make a transfer. Or I take it back. You can expense anything. I'm thinking the other way. Apologize. Don't mean to go.
You're ready to be like, wait.
If you were putting money in it, you'd have.
All right, okay, thank you.
But you can change an expense at any point in time. So if you decide that there's $100,000 that you want to spend and you pull out of Fund 46, you can. That will lessen the Fund 10 deficit. But considering I think the Fund 10 deficit will be better than advertised, you may want to just leave it up when that falls and save the money in Fund 46 for a future year. So that $100,000 drop in 2025 likely won't happen. So you'll still have $600,000 for the end of this before next year. Fund 50 for food service. This is based on the current food service program, and we review the budget over the summer once we get the numbers down. So this is just basically flat, other than the capital expenses we had for the North Ballinger model have been removed, and that's a smaller number. So we are anticipating, and we do see that utilities will probably go up a little bit, but I haven't put that in yet. So there'll be some flexibility with this fund as we get closer to the school year. Fund 73, again, is just an employee benefit trust. We will put in a number when we get the final of what was pulled out of it this year. That'll be updated on June 30th. And again, it's something that the district contributes to, we'll do have to report it. And then Fund 80, community service. This one will be one that the board will have an option with because the tax levy that is applied to Fund 80 is outside the revenue limit, and you can pick whatever number you want to. We have not taxed in this for this levy in several years, basically since COVID, because we've had this money sitting in there for fund balance, and we haven't really gone through it. A lot of the expenses we have in Fund 80 are covered by the CLC grant because that's the biggest item that we pay for out of there. But we do have our Lead Falcon Partners program, any facility personnel costs for weekend events or the community events are out there, costs for the Village magazine. So it doesn't drop all that quickly. So again, depending on what our fund balance is at the end of the 24-25 school year, you may decide to tax a little bit or maybe not at all and just let it fall again another year. Because again, if you're trying to keep the overall levy flat at $11 million as an example, if you add $100,000 to this, that would lessen your ability to defease debt, or you'd be taking it over that 11 million, 11.1. But we're still, you still have time to work through that. And we did not just for a point of clarification, we have always budgeted the middle school after school program through Fund 80. The last couple of years, it has been supported by that after school grant. That was part of ESSER dollars, so that was paid for and it was not using tax levy. This year, we had a change in leadership at the middle school, and we didn't start the after school program until February. And with all of the requirements that you need to have in order for it to be a Fund 80 allowable expense to be open to the community and things like that, I wasn't sure that we were going to be able to commit to all of that. And the expense wasn't going to be huge because it was only going to be a couple people, a couple hours, a few days a week. So we just ran it through Fund 10 and just eliminated any question about the Fund 80 use. But if Ms. Washington, grows the program or makes it, wants to do something a little bigger, then traditionally we've decided that we would take about $20,000 out of the Fund 80 to support that. And that is the end of the budget. So that carries you all the way through. We don't share the DPI version of the budget on this one because we don't publicize it. But what will happen is, again, Quinn will be taking over and we'll work through the budget in July and the first part of August with any updates, any adjustments, any other directives from the board or the administration. And then in August, at the end of August, you will approve what we have called traditionally the annual meeting version of the budget. That's what will get published in the paper and will be part of the annual meeting and budget presentation. And then you'll go through the voting process with the community then, and then the last minute updates will happen in September and October before the final budget is approved at the end of October.
Questions? I actually have two. All right, so I know as a board, we approved $873,000 negative budget or whatever have you, but now you're saying it's almost closer to 1.36?
Right now, currently, yes.
Right, so that's an additional of almost what? That's $500,000?
Well, this is the next year's budget.
But I'm just saying for what we're getting ready to get into,
Yeah,
right? So that's an additional 500,000. Knowing where we at right now, what we're getting ready, what we approved, where we're looking at for 25, 26, or whatever have you. Looking into the future, 26, 27. What do we, again, we know we're getting ready to hit the cliff or whatever. What would your estimation, well, it's kind of hard for you to be able to estimate something like that or whatever have you. We've got all of this, we've got other dollars and stuff that we're going to use to make up the deficit parts or whatever have you and everything else like that, because we've been really good stewards of the money. When we start to look at that 26, 27, what are your thoughts? Because I'm quite sure you've already kind of thought about it already before. So
well, I think that's where, we will need help. Obviously, unless enrollment takes off to a point that you can add a bunch of kids without necessarily adding a ton of other costs. That's where I think those discussions about deciding what do we want the school district to look like going forward and what programs we want to offer and what's the size of it we want to do. Do we want to backfill with open enrollment in? Do we have to, make some other adjustments? What do we want to focus on? I think that's that community conversation that's going to be real critical as to what that, but we're going to have to start talking about what happens if we don't get any additional support. What does that look like from a staffing standpoint? What does that look like from a program standpoint? And I think understanding what the community and the students and the administration and everyone, all the stakeholders, value, that's how you prioritize those decisions. So I think we still are challenged with compensation in general with teachers. We're getting better, and hopefully, I'm knock on wood, hopefully our turnover is less this year than what we've experienced in the past. Obviously, the next few months will tell, but certainly so far it's been more positive.
So far it's been pretty positive.
So far it's been pretty positive. So we'll see how that goes. Everybody gets desperate in August though, so we'll see, the school districts start throwing money around. So we'll see what happens, but hopefully we're in a better place than we were several years ago. And that's the biggest driver of costs. But I do think the administration will have to start just planning and thinking very closely about what would it look like if we had to, cut some certain things. Are there opportunities with shifting schedules or whatever the case may be that, maybe if people were to leave, do we need to replace them? Can we shift roles and responsibilities? So But on the other hand, you may have a community that says, look, we want A, B, C, D, E, and F, and it's.
Then we just gotta pay for it.
And we're willing to pay for it, in which case then you can, then the sky's the limit and you can
Then it's the
decide
sky.
what makes sense. So I think that's where really that conversation is gonna drive that
Okay.
discussion.
All right, I just wanted everybody to be kind of cognizant of kind of where we're at and what the future potential, what the future may look like in relationship to this and stuff, and some of the decisions we're going to be making, today, tomorrow, or whatever have you, is going to dictate a little bit more about what's going to happen in the next year and what we're going to look like from a financial standpoint and services and programs and everything else that we're going to be able to offer. So. All right, any other questions for Mr. Clemick in relationship to this budget? That is very detailed and pretty much well thought out.
Yeah, great job. One thing that I'm kind of thinking about, as we consider asking for assistance from the community in the future or the potential of that happening, maybe somehow or another, we can do a little research to kind of see, what our neighboring districts, where they are as far as their tax levy is concerned, where it is, so that, we can't really make a comparison, but just kind of knowing where we are and how we stand, so that maybe people have an understanding of how the monies are allocated and how it differs from, let's say, for instance, Shorewood versus Brockville or one of the other North Shore. So I know that's a little bit more research or whatever, but it would be nice just for the community to have an idea. Because I listen to a lot of my friends who live in MPS school district, and they are really, really complaining. Well, where does the money go? It doesn't go to the kids. And I don't think that they have an idea as to how money is allocated differently in MPS versus some of the suburban schools, number one. And then I think also they don't have an understanding of all of the places money goes, what it has to do. So that's just.
I would say that, and so if you already have a presentation that shares some of that, because when Baird was here a year ago, they did present and discuss. And it's got to be updated now because other districts have passed referendum, but majority of districts, if you remember the map that showed exactly all the districts that hadn't passed a referendum ever, and our little squares in there, because we're one of the few, there's less than, I think, 50 now, that haven't passed one at some point in time, an operating referendum. And so when you look at us compared to all of our neighbors, and if we're going to be compared to whether you like it or not, the Mequons, the Nicolets, the Shorewoods, the Baysides, and the Menominee Falls, if they're all operating with additional revenue, how are we supposed to be competitive if we can't? So that's the question. And if people want to support the district to the level that our neighbors have, that's part of the competitive nature in order for us to stand out and be able to provide things for our students. They all have the support. Can we get it as well? And Baird will help with that conversation and help provide you with the data to share with the community so they understand. You can say like, wow, everybody's passed a referendum. Maybe we need to.
That transparency. Thank you. So at what point do we start to have that conversation with the community though? Even though, and I say that because even though we may be in an okay situation for next year, we also know that they don't always pass. So I would think that we would want to start to ask before we absolutely need it.
I think the balance was, the struggle that I had, and I was honest, was that you needed to show need first. And when you have years of surpluses, it's hard to then say, give us more money. But now we are in that point where you will have a deficit spend this year. Next year's will start out larger. And if that is the profile of the way the district needs to operate in the board's opinion and administration position, then that's the kind of money you need going forward. And that doesn't even account for other things that you may want to do, which is why I think I would start the conversation now, and start engaging the community. And again, I think the board has to decide whether this is whether you're going to do listening sessions or whether you want to create a ad hoc referendum committee and invite, specific community members or other people to participate. Certainly, they're all open to the public and have those discussions, start leading that work to see like what are people's appetites for? Do they understand, and explaining the situation so they understand why are we in this situation? Why, what did all these other districts do? Okay, see how we're an outlier. And then you start to slowly build support and people understand like, wow. And then you hear the budget conversations at the state level where people are saying, well, we're not going to give any more money for this. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. And you see the challenge. So I think I would, there's no harm in starting it now because it's just longer to let the information get out there and help people understand. Because whether you do a question in April or November of 26 or April of 27, I mean, I don't think you can start too soon.
And just so the board knows, those discussions are being had and held right now in regards to moving forward with that, and we will be receiving some information from me very shortly in regards to. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. You'll be receiving some information very shortly from me in regards to this whole question about when we start. But I just wanted the board to know that it's not for lack of, we are having those conversations right now with the two vendors that have come and presented to us. And I will have something for you very shortly in regards to it, making a recommendation in regards to how we move. So be looking for that very soon.
Yeah. Ms. Ashton?
So I know that in September, once we began to have more of a sense of what the budget looks like, right? Because we do that annual meeting where we present the budget and that whole nine. Wondering if some of the things that you're going to share with us, because I believe that, well, we're having this conversation here. There are conversations that are happening out there. And to the extent that we can, put factual information in terms of how we got here and why we need to call this question of a referendum in play, the better off we'll be. I'm speaking with my resident hat on. I'm of the mindset, the more that you can be transparent and the more that you can explain to me what this all means, the better, right? And so I'm thinking that September at our annual meeting, that might be an agenda item. Where, folks in the community can have an opportunity
To have them ask those
to ask those
questions.
questions.
And we'll
right?
actually
we're
have-
prepared,
And we'll
right?
actually also
Yeah.
probably within that meeting, with all of the information that Dr. Cobb is going to share with us, and then as a board, what we agree upon, what we're going to do is we'll have those individuals there as well too, at that annual meeting to be able to answer some of those questions. We'll make sure that we have a summary sheet, or we'll call it an executive summary or a concept paper or whatever have you, detailing and outlining everything, kind of what's going on. We'll also use the information from Baird. We'll use all of the information from whichever one of the ones that we're getting ready to use to be able to do that. So that way we have a nice little packet for Q&As for everybody within the community. I think the other thing too is, and the things that we've already talked about as a board is the more communication that we have with the community and being able to put it out there, partnering more with the village to make sure that this information that we're going to be submitting and that we're going to be sharing is also going on the village website as well too, and going out in that weekly Brown Deer newsletter and everything else like that. So again, this is gonna be an effort that is just not gonna be in a silo, because it doesn't work. The community has to approve it, it has to agree upon it. And I just think everybody needs to understand is that, this referendum, whenever we go to this or whatever, we're gonna have to have it passed, because if not, then the only people that are gonna be hurt are gonna be our students. All right. And the bigger, the better the story, the more questions that we can answer, the more, again, transparency is always going to be very important in what we do and why we do. That message has got to be out there. The thing in relationship to like Kevin and finances, when he started talking about like we're one of the very few or whatever have you, what we've been able to do is we've been really good stewards of the money. And then when we did have a surplus, we defeased the money off to be able to pay long-term debt down. All right. So we've been looking at the whole thing for the community. And I think those are also things that we also got to let everybody know. So like right now, when we spent the 1 point whatever million or whatever in defeasement, now we don't have to pay, was it 2038?
We took off 1 year off.
Yeah, we took it 1 year off of already. period, point blank or what. And we've been doing that consistently now for the last several years. And so I think that also is part of the message that we're gonna have to put out to the community, letting them know that, hey, we've been doing this. We just haven't been sitting on things. We've been looking long term. All right. That's the reason why we haven't come to you in the last 10 years.
Well, 2018 was the last one, so.
Well, 8 years or whatever, last 8 years, even asking about anything or whatever have you and stuff, but we knew we were gonna end up potentially having to come to this point. Because we want a quality school district. We want to be able to put the best product out there for our students, for them to be able to learn and everything else like that. And everybody's also got to understand that people move into districts because of people move into communities because of the school district as well, too. So if you got a strong school district and meeting all of the needs and being able to highlight all of the different things that we got, people want to live here. All right. And then, that's part of our tax base. And that's the biggest thing right there. Yes, Ms. Will.
So in saying that, like, how are we telling the story? How are we intending to bring the students to the table? So student voice can be a part of this conversation, because I feel like, I know you have your superintendents can be like, is that one of the things that'll be on the agenda, right? And really just showcasing, because for, to piggyback on what you said, right? Folks want to know how the money is being spent, and the best way to show that, what is it going into, is to have the kids be present in that conversation. I feel like, right, for the kids to be able to give testimonial, right?
That video.
Right, it's very great, but I think it also speaks volumes when you can have kids, and I think it's a fantastic learning experience for them as well.
Yes.
Part of the transparency, and I talk loud because it's hard for me to hear in this space. And sometimes when you guys are talking, they may be able to hear it on the videos there, but I know I talk pretty loud, but it would be nice for you guys to sometimes speak up a little bit more. But I think that when I'm thinking about being fiscally responsible, what's important to me when I'm thinking about the dollars separate from the kids to a certain extent, I want to know that Brown Deer people are sending in their reports on time. That reports are timely, for us to be able to access money, because I've heard a lot of instances where reports haven't been done and then the money doesn't come. So explaining to the community that we are not only being fiscally responsible with watching and overseeing, but part of that watching and overseeing includes turning in paperwork in a timely manner, monitoring and making sure that we know what monies are available to us, and the relationships with the community members to be able to access other monies. And then also showing where we've paid back money. I think, Kevin, you've done an excellent job with all of those things, having the right partners so that we can save money. So you've been like I said, you've been an excellent steward as far as that's concerned. I do have a vote of confidence in Quentin, but I just want to say thank you for all that you've done as far as this is concerned. But I think that those are the things that are going to be really important for us to do. We're doing the reporting. All of the rest of that is icing on the cake. But the meat and potatoes, in my opinion, is showing people that how we've been a good steward of their money. And I think that that's what equates to that transparency that Director Daniels actually was talking about. Now that's my opinion.
All right. Okay, so with that being said, any further questions or any other comments? Can you see now, would someone like to make a motion to approve preliminary budget?
Make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 preliminary budget as presented.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ashley. Motion made. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Bacon, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? You can see none, all in favor, raise hand and/or aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously 7-0. All right, let's go on to our item number I, our approval or agreement with Fox Point Bayside Physical Therapy Services. Now, with that have been.
Yes.
Okay, Kevin.
Just because this is a shared service agreement we do every year. We've done it for a very long time. We have a physical therapist that we share with Occupy Bayside, and it's about a 50-50 split, but it's actually depends on the needs of the students in one district or the other. So, this year I think it's a little bit less, but this is just entering the agreement so that, we can do this. At Fox Point, Bayside is the monetary agent, so they hire the individual, pay the salary, and we just get billed, semi-annually for the cost.
So the amount we're billed is based upon how many students we have.
How many students, how many days a week she's here, how many minutes, and then we get that. So I think it's been about 50-50, I would say, but this year it's actually a little lower, so I think she might only be here 2 days or 2.5 days a week as opposed to 3. I think she's supposed to be 2 days a week.
Okay, because I know there wasn't an amount, so that's why.
Right, it bases on use.
So this is just, you follow me? Am I recognized?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was looking at the contract and when we get to number 7, this agreement shall take effect on July 1st, 2021. Is that correct?
That's probably when it maybe
First started.
They didn't change it. Their board just approved this already, and I know they may have missed that date.
Okay.
Because it does say June 2nd, 2025 on the first paragraph.
Yeah.
It would be July, it would be July 1,
This year.
this year, 2025. We can make a note.
That was the only thing I caught.
I read it many times over the years.
All right, so would someone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the 66 agreement with Fox Point Bayside for physical therapy services for 25-26 school year as presented.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Wells. Motion's been made. We have a second? Thank you very much, Ms. Hallmeyer. All right, any further discussion? You can see none, all in favor, will raise hand and/or aye. Any opposed? You can see none, motion carries unanimously. All right. Next item. All right, discussion about the CEP program. Kevin?
Yes, so, and potential approval. So this memo is very similar. We had this discussion 2 weeks ago. The only thing that I had failed to mention, I do apologize for that, because the fun part about talking to Quinn and working with him is that we can talk about stuff and then I realize I forget things. It's nice to have a thought partner, which you always don't have, but but I did forget to mention last time that one of the strategies we have been using in Fund 50 to help with our excessive fund balance is we are moving some utility costs from the kitchens into Fund 50. So this year we are waiting. They're providing the reports based on some new equipment that we have obviously in front of town. But I'm anticipating about $80,000 worth of electrical costs from Fund 10 will move into Fund 50, which again then frees up $80,000 in the operational budget for whatever else we want to do. So that would just be one thing, and it's not that you can't do both for a while. But obviously, if you take the $21,000
Plus the 80,000.
plus the 80,000, you're talking about $100,000 a year. Now you don't have to do the utility piece because that's just choice that we're doing. So you can always do it, but you would have to cover those costs in.
But it still saves us 80,000. It would save us about roughly 8,000.
Right. But the other point is too, is that, you can do it for a couple of years. Hopefully, if there's a referendum question that comes through, you have the funding that would offset that anyway, potentially. So I just want to make you aware of it, that it is a piece that we didn't talk about last time. Again, short term, it's not really an issue, but long term, if without additional funding, you have to decide maybe to pare that back and not claim everything in the Fund 50 as the balance continues to drop, or you have to come up with a different plan. So I just wanted to share that part, but everything else has remained the same. I just wanted to give everybody a couple weeks to consider it. We have, so tonight you'd have to make a decision so that the board, could have to notify DPI by Monday.
All right, so I think this is probably a discussion. Anybody have any questions for Kevin before we get into this? I guess my question is now, Kevin, you just said about the potential us being able to use the money to be able to towards some of our utility costs or something else like that or whatever, so in about $80,000, right?
That's what we've been spending last, that's what we're anticipating this year now that all three kitchens are being metered and we have all of our current.
So about $80,000 and then another $21,000 in revenue that we wouldn't get if we went with the CEP, right?
You would assume that the money will come out of fund balance.
Okay.
You'd look at that, so those two things being $100,000 drop in fund balance.
Okay, so that's $100,000 drop in fund balance. Okay, that's number one. Number two, with this, with the CEP, the students that actually already qualify, they're, you know, whether or not we do it or not, those students that already qualify for free and reduced get it regardless whether we do CEP or not, right?
Right, either through direct certification or if they do the application,
Okay.
yes, they would.
That was like 67%, correct?
Including the application piece, yes.
Right, it was like 67%.
All right, so 67% of our students already qualify. All right, so it's only 33% of our students are the ones that are paying, and that's the 21,000. All right, so those that actually really need it, pretty much in our district are already getting it.
Presumably, I mean, obviously, the direct certification is automatic, the application piece does require people to share that information, some may or may not.
Okay, so what kind of money do we get for, you said the à la carte though would be separate, so it would not be included in any CEP money, we would still be getting that money in. What are we estimating or what are we getting for what's the revenue for that?
I don't have that right off the top of my head. But I mean, there are food costs tied to that. So I mean, there's obviously upcharges for everything that we're selling, whether it's chips or whatever the case may be. And it's not an insignificant amount, but it's not, I mean, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars. It's not to the extent of what we get for reimbursement from the federal government meals, where you're talking about $500,000, $600,000, $700,000.
Okay, so we get reimbursement for the meal already.
Right, in either way, you get reimbursed. So you get reimbursed under the current model, you get reimbursed for all three types of meals, whether it's free, reduced, or paid. Under the CEP model, it's one price for everything, and you don't count reduced at all. So there's a chunk of that money that kind of disappears, and the reimbursement rate is different. That's why they have you do that calculation, and then you're looking at are you anticipating more students participating in the program? Assuming it's free, will you get, if everybody has it free, will you sell more basically? And so then that also, you have to put that in your projection for the reimbursement of what you get. And that's where, again, very conservative calculation. What we did is I used the numbers for the last, this whole school year, put in a 2% escalator in the number of students that would do it. And then the spreadsheet calculates, and I put in what our sales are and what our free and reduced are. And then it calculates what the loss would be on a monthly basis. Exactly, that's where it's $21,000.
So one last thing I would like to add then is, what has the trends been traditionally for each year? Have we, let's say for instance, last year was 62%. The year before that was 60%. Is it increasing? And do you project it increasing more just based on what's happening in the world?
I think it's hard to predict what's happening. I mean, I would say generally, yes, the trend is that we are serving more and more free and reduced students on an annual basis, and that does continue to increase. But I don't know if I can say, I mean, part of it depends on, when housing opens up. If we have market rate housing, that probably won't attract families that would qualify for free and reduced lunch. So if a number of students join us there, those are going to be paid students. So that's, a different category. So I don't know that I would feel comfortable telling you this is what it's going to be like in a few years. But I would say historically, certainly it has slowly, it's continued to creep up. And obviously the economic situation, when you're in periods of high inflation, obviously people feel the impact more and probably qualify at a different rate than what they may have. And that's the other part too. The federal government at any point in time can change what qualify.
All right, so Rhonda, Ms. Farrington was next, and then Ms. Acton.
So I've been around several schools. I've been around schools that serve only the free lunch. And they are not allowed to serve any other extra and additional items. So if this is the same program, how come some of those schools are not allowed to serve some of those additional items that you would pay extra for because everybody's free? So they are not allowed to sell chips and juice and pizza because they're getting the free lunch. This is what I was told by people. So if you go to some of the schools, they only have free lunch. They don't have anything extra that you can purchase. So I just want to be sure that if we were to do something like this, that wouldn't be something in our future where they say, oh, well, if all of your students qualify for free and reduced lunch, how are you selling over and beyond because they're supposed to be low income? Do you know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't want to lose the quality and the options that our students have. And so with a program like this, are we absolutely sure that is not in the future of a program like this?
I don't think you ever know for sure, but can I call on you? Yeah, because as I was saying, remember Clinton is in Cudahy. Cudahy has some schools that participate.
Yeah, we do it. All of our district is CEP. We still do have a la carte. They can buy things separate with their own money. Doesn't count towards the free lunch, but it's, an extra. There's no restriction on that as far as I know. At least.
I wasn't aware of one either, but I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know what the qualifications are. If it's because our percentage is lower, maybe, I don't know. Because we're still not, there are automatic thresholds, which I think MPS qualifies for. We're not at that point. That's why this is
And I think probably like an MPS or everybody else, those schools probably aren't even offering those other options anyway and stuff because everything is already free. So they're not even putting that out there for them to be able to even do the chips and the sodas and all the rest of those different things or whatever, because everything is already free. And so for them, it would be an extra cost for them to even bring the stuff in to be able to do it. So I just think they're probably streamlining. So it's free, like I've said before, but these are those bigger school districts, the MPSs and stuff like that. They're probably not even doing it because it would be a headache for them. And it'd be a cost. And then also it'd be an accounting nightmare for them as well, too, trying to keep up with what was being sold or whatever, because you still got to report it.
Yeah.
Still got to get reported. All right. And so I think potentially, hopefully, I think for them, it would also be one of those auditing things too for each one of them if they were to continue to do that. So
Remember, it was universal free breakfast and lunch. And so it was just that federal program. There was no other competing anything. In fact, that's part of it, where you can't have competing food because of that universal.
they got to eat what's there.
They got,
This is not that.
oh, okay.
No, I'm asking, make sure that this is not that same.
because I think that's when you hit that threshold where it's automatic, universal, it's basically demanded. I think that you do it that way. Whereas we're still
up under the rate. We're still up under it. And we're still up under that rate.
Yeah, we're under the threshold, so there isn't an issue with offering. Now, someday that could maybe potentially could happen where you hit that threshold of apply to that, but that would happen regardless of whether or not we were in it now. That if that's the case, if you hit that threshold, not charging for lunches up until that.
And students with this free lunch could get anything except for an extra juice or an extra soda.
Yeah, all of our stations, like especially at the high school where you have multiple options, whether it's a salad, whether it's a burger or chicken sandwich, whether it's the made to order sandwich or the restaurant rotation, all of those count as reimbursable items. So they're all considered allowable lunches. There's no single part of that you say, well, we wouldn't use that. All of that counts as lunch. And right now, our students have access to all of those things, regardless of their status. So if they're free or reduced, they can go to any of those stations and just like the students.
And this would allow just all students to be able to do that.
Oh, well, all students would be, there wouldn't be there's only one set price. It would just be that nobody would be charged for breakfast or lunch, other than a la carte.
So we wouldn't get any of the other revenue part program. Right. Right. Wait, Ms. Ashley, were you next? Yeah.
I just have, just an observation with everything that's going on with federal programs, right? Especially food programs and nutrition programs. Is this something that we really want to jump into, kind of knowing
everything that is happening, the uncertainty of a lot of federal kinds of programs. I'm just gonna throw that out there because that is the first thing that I became concerned with. Was jumping into something and then having the rug pulled under us in terms of that. The other piece to this, I just feel like this is so rushed. Right, we just got this, I've been trying to look at the information, wondering if it's something that if we don't do it, is it gonna break us? I mean, is it something that is gonna hurt this district? Can we put it off, allow
Just
ourselves
following year to see.
Yeah.
And see if the referendum part happens.
Yeah, and the whole,
Right, and then right now, too, on top of it, from what Kevin just reported out, we lose $100,000 that we really probably gonna need. And if this program isn't going anywhere, right now, we're really trying to figure out from a financial standpoint, we're gonna end up trying to find every nickel that we potentially really need right now to be able to do that. And then by next year, I hope, well, again, like Ms. Ashley said, federal programs, who knows? It may be here today, it's gone tomorrow. But for us, and when we're getting ready to turn around and we're starting to talk about referendum and being able to ask the community for money and everything else like that, and we're giving up $100,000, kind of hard to sit there and potentially look at people in the face and be like, well.
Well, I just want to clarify though, because I just so we're using, I don't want to make sure we're using, so you're not losing the $100,000. I mean, the reality is that we have, because of the pandemic, we have a significant amount of money that's been available and it's tied to food service. And when you have brand new kitchens, which we now have 3 brand new kitchens, you're limited in what you can do to spend that down. So one of the things that we try to be creative and think about, and again, going to the fiscal responsibility piece, is that we have the ability to calculate and pull that money out of our operating budgets and pull utilities out that DPI approves. And that's a way to use that money without having to buy other things that we don't necessarily need because.
And keep it in Fund 10.
And then Fund 10 opens up and now your utility budget can drop and the money can be used elsewhere. So we're not losing money, but it's a creative way of opening up resources for something else. And that could be limited, not necessarily immediately. I mean, you may get 4 years out of doing both things. And then, after the additional 4 years, then you might have to look at something different for the utility piece. But I'm just saying that long term, you'd have to probably give that up at some point because your fund balance wouldn't sustain that long.
All right, so just for clarification, hold on, does somebody else have a question first? Before I ask my clarification question?
Yeah, I have a question, just a quick question. So if this is something that we, it does a little bit feel rushed. Is there a way as a district that we can find those families that may need support who, would say, yes, I would like to have free lunch? Is there a way we can find ways to help families like fill out the free and reduced lunch application to catch those families that might be on the cusp, as opposed to rushing into an all district program? Maybe we work with families because, I think it is a lot of families I don't need support. When really maybe they do, but they don't want people to know. So is there maybe a way that we can find those families and help those families more confidentially than, hey, you need support?
Yeah, then doing a whole district-wide thing.
Yeah, especially when we're saying that we're.
This stigma is crazy.
But especially when there are a number of people who aren't paying their lunch fees, and we want to be able to go and retrieve that money from them. So there are people who aren't paying those fees, for lunch, because clearly they can't afford it, but the figures say that they're not able to, that they don't qualify. I would like to know those numbers. What percentage of people, out of that 33%, what percentage of people are struggling to pay? Well, but like you say, I still feel like we're rushed. I still feel like we're rushed, and I would like to know, out of that 33%, what percentage of those people are struggling to pay those bills, and the government is saying that
they should be able
Or
to pay.
have balances.
Right, that have balances.
All right,
That's what I read.
Ms. Robinson, well, hold on, Ms. Farrington, hold on. Ms. Robinson, that floor next, and then you can go back.
So it may not be that the figure doesn't say they don't qualify, like Sharonda said, they may not have even applied. But then also you may have some folks with some balances just because
They ain't paying their.
Johnny ate 5 bags of hot Cheetos today and he only had money for one. So, I mean, there's different scenarios that could contribute to that balance being there or to people not getting support. And they do need it, and they may not know that they qualify for it. I think it could be helpful too, if you have folks who tend to have balances on a regular basis, to approach them and ask if there are additional services they may need, or if some things could be offered to them. But there could be different things that contributes to that.
Well, they just ain't paying the bill.
Yeah.
Well, we did, I mean, in honesty, when we,
Different.
when we switch, I mean, when we switched back to paid after the pandemic, and you'd have people, even in the second year of being paid, who would say, well, you have this balance, oh, I didn't know it was free anymore.
Right.
I mean, I think I was sitting here and I was telling you, like, we're gonna have to go back to paid, we have to go back to paid, and we try to say it. But I certainly think there's an opportunity for communication and working with our social workers and, you know, taking a closer look at we know the registrar, the registration process, you know, gets updated every year, just making sure that
Being able to get that information out there so people understand.
this is an opportunity for you to, if you need assistance filling out the form, you know, provide that additional help if needed.
Okay, all right, Ms. Welch, and then, okay, Ms. Welch.
Yeah, no, I would be in favor of it. The money is there to cover it. And, you know, again, it's a unique opportunity, right? In terms of being able to use that money when it would be otherwise difficult, right? In terms of figuring out how to spend it. And in terms of, like, we may never know that, but I mean, reality is this, right? We do live in uncertain times financially for folks right now. And so that's not to say that somebody who didn't qualify this school year doesn't mean they won't qualify next school year because of changes in families' incomes. And additionally, like when we talk about stigma, like this, I think when it's a blanket offering, then that takes the stigma off of the whole application process. And so for me, the money is there. Like, I don't see the loss in this at all.
All right. Anybody else or anything else? Or again, like I know some people have talked about this thing seems a little bit rushed or whatever. Is this one of those things that we sit there and we figure out all of these other questions, all the rest of these other numbers or whatever, and this is something that we potentially pop up and we apply for next year and being able to do that. Then that way we can turn around and we can talk to everybody, figure out, you know, some of these other different things or whatever, and as well as being able to keep that money to be able, under that Fund 10, to be able to use that $80,000 that we would have spent having to do that and take that money to be able to talk about potentially some staffing or some other things that we've got to do potentially or whatever. And people, and this is the other piece of this to remember is this. Individuals like you said, we had like 60 some odd percent or whatever have you, those individuals are already getting it anyway. All right. And I don't think that now correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that people go up to the lunch line and be like, oh, I'm free and reduced or whatever. I just think the kids just go up, they got the thing or whatever have you to be able to do it. And the people that need the help, they're getting it or whatever. And you know, that's
Dr. Vito, as a parent, I always, if I came up short on my bill, I gotta know. They tell you right away, you are short this amount of money, you
get a call. I'm saying the kids though, it doesn't happen at the school.
No, I'm talking about parents now. I'm going back to the parent thing. I just kind of feel like in any situation, even if it's me, I'm never leaving the money on the table. I'm not. I'm gonna use whatever money is available to me at whatever given time. And that's my being fiscally responsible for my household. I would think as a district, we would be just as fiscally responsible. If there is money on the table that we can get, whether it's for 1 year, for 6 months, for 4 months, for 3 months, my personal opinion is the money is on the table.
we can't predict, we don't have a ball or whatever you call, what do you call those balls?
Crystal ball.
We don't have a crystal ball. Whatever way people vote, fine, but I feel like there's money on the table. If there's an opportunity for us to be able to support the students in one way, just one way, and the money is coming to us, I believe that we should seize the opportunity and then, for lack of another term, and work on whatever happens next year for what we need to have next year, because next year we may have 75, 100% or whatever of the kids that need free lunch.
And they would get it anyway.
But this year, they don't.
Okay.
I would like.
Oh, wait. First, Ms. Robinson, and then Ms. Farrington.
So I would like to know how, if families are taking advantage of the free lunch during the summer and how that's been communicated to the community, because I know I have seen it on social media. And if we were to go with this program, I think that it's very important that whether we go with it or not, that we let people know the significance of it and that it's there. And so that people can take advantage of it. That's gonna make a really big difference. And even, I know one of the concerns was if we allow this program, then people won't submit reporting maybe for the district to be able to qualify. That's also something that's handled through communication. You know, this is a program that we have. You still need to complete this documentation in order for us to continue to be approved for this program. Whatever the decision is, whatever needs to happen to go along with it, we just have to be clear in that communication that we're putting out and putting it out in multiple ways so that folks truly are aware of whatever it is.
And our families have been really good about that. Like you think about ECF and how like our E-rate reimbursement is dependent upon our free and reduced lunch and so on. And we do communicate that in our registration process. You're exactly right. We just say that this number it's important for everybody to apply, if they, to complete those applications. You're exactly right. And then
Wait.
had a comment too. I'm sorry, there's one on the board. I just wanted to make sure you know that. So
What?
There's a comment from Ms. Williams about this week's session, just that it's not, we knew about it weeks ago. So,
All right, okay, were you finished with yours? Okay, now, Ms. Farrington.
Yeah, I was gonna say two things. One, I'm gonna go back to the data in our 33%. I'd like to know how many of those 33% of those families have balances, have not paid, have struggled. Because is it really a need for those 33% of students? I mean, yes, it's always great. Yeah, you get free peanut butter and jelly. Yeah, some of us will go for it, but most of us be like, yeah, no, let's go to Culver's. So I would like to know, what is the data? And then if we're offering free lunch to every student that qualifies for free lunch then qualifies for free athletics and free, is that then?
No. That's why we would have, I mean, you would have to have them fill out, that's the one caveat is that you'd want to make sure that if they felt they qualified, we would need some other documentation. Otherwise, you would be eliminating all fees. Now you're talking about a revenue hole that's much larger. So you still have to have people fill out a form, or they'd be qualified through direct certification to qualify for all the other free and reduced pieces that we would otherwise apply. Otherwise, you are talking about like eliminating any fee whatsoever, which then is a much different conversation.
And the last part of my question is, if we don't go through with it this year, is it a year where we make sure those families, like a year of catching all those families and kind of seeing where we are, kind of more of an evaluation before we just I don't know, it feels a little bit rushed to me. And yes, we heard about this for the last couple months, but.
No, we just heard about this last meeting.
Meeting.
Right, so this was.
Months ago for me.
It was a month ago.
So my-
It may have mentioned it, and we had a bigger conversation.
Yeah, so, yeah, a month ago, so it still feels kind of rushed for, you know. Like, I would like to make a decision based on.
Oh, I guess the question I don't know how we would know. Like, because that's always a challenge. How do you know what's the need? I mean, I can certainly tell you the families that don't qualify for free reduced lunch, how many that balances. But I don't know that we would know why that's the case, because again, it's, some of it is, some of it may be that they're on the cusp and they don't do it. And again, we don't, the challenge is, and that's been the board policy, which I don't disagree with, is that we don't do the cheese sandwich or the peanut butter sandwich.
We don't
give them a regular-
anybody,
Right.
they get the regular lunches like everybody else.
They get charged it and it just builds, we don't turn people away for that. Whereas the à la carte stuff, we can, and we do. So if you have a certain balance, then we don't, you can't purchase à la carte with a certain negative balance, which is a little bit easier to.
Our kids are only.
Even if we had an idea of how many of those families have a balance.
Oh, that I can do. I just don't know, I don't know how the
It doesn't,
motivation.
like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter why they have a balance, but
Right.
they have a balance they have yet to pay, even despite getting a robocall.
Mhm.
Cause I do.
I know about it too. I remember I had a kid here too, and that's when we had tire or whatever. And if my balance was down to $3.50, I was getting like 7 phone calls or whatever and stuff like that and everything else like that. Also want to be able to put this out there is this. As a board for the last, since pandemic, we have always looked out for our families. So when the pandemic hit and everything else like that, what did we do? We turned around, we made our athletic stuff free. We made everything else free. We do everything that we possibly can do for our families and stuff when we have those opportunities. But also the other part of that, the caveat to that is that, we're getting ready to go into another realm when we start to talk about referendum. We start to talk about, and again, and this is kind of a weird thing to say, but we also start to talk about perceptions and all the rest of those and stigmas and all the rest of those different things and stuff about being a district that's a free and reduced lunch district. All right. When you turn around and you looked at this list or whatever have you, what North Shore schools districts did you see there?
That I have was.
Well, that's not North Shore. No, that has nothing to do with they're far away from us or whatever have you. And then when you start to talk about the other thing too that we've always talked about is Brown Deer, we kind of have a bit of an image problem sometimes when people think about Brown Deer or whatever. So then you turn around and you look at this list. Now our district is a free and reduced lunch district. What do you think some of the perceptions are going to be, especially for people? And like again, 70% of the people that live in Brown Deer do not have kids that go to the district. So what exactly is going to be the perception of all those individuals? Now we're a free and reduced lunch district number one, and now you're going to turn around when we get ready to do the referendum. You're going to turn around, you're going to do that, and then you're going to turn around, you're going to ask me for some more money.
Okay, so
So
what is the percentage for these other districts in North Shore? Do they have 67% of their populations getting free and reduced lunch now? And is their numbers increasing?
well, I couldn't tell you that or whatever, but again, I think the thing would be is everybody that qualifies and that needs it has an option to be able to have it. It's already there.
Where are you getting 67%?
I didn't say 67. I don't know where they came from.
From one of the other meetings?
When you include the applications, in the memo for CEP qualification, they just look at direct certified. So that's the number that's automatic from the state. So that's the number that is determines whether or not you can be CEP or not. It doesn't have anything to do with application, but when you include applications, if you go look on WISE data, and you look at what our free and reduced numbers are, we are in the 60s.
Right, you told us that last time.
It fluctuates a little bit, but.
It's not in the documentation we got though.
Well, right, because it's not a part of the qualification process, so it doesn't necessarily, it's not a part of that calculation. I'm just focusing on the direct certification because that's what is part of the determining factor.
Right. All right.
Well, I'm just gonna, I'm done.
Okay. So any other discussion in relationship to this, because I think a lot of people are saying they're feeling a little bit rushed and everything else like that. Is this also, do we also have the option to be able to do this next year?
Unless something were to change, I would assume that we will follow this. We're not going to drop. We should still qualify, unless the parameters of the program change or it's eliminated. But I would assume that we would also qualify.
All right, I guess my next thing in, I'm sorry, you got something you want to say, Charles?
My other question is, where was the $80,000 number that y'all were floating around? Where did that?
That was I added it into the memo, for this week's version of the memo because, toward the last point, because that was the utility cost that we are transferring from Fund 10 into Fund 50. So that was just, that's gonna make the fund balance go down faster than just the 20,000 we were talking about at last week. I had forgotten that part of it, that's part of our strategy. So I at least wanted to just, you don't have to do it, but I just wanted to share with you, that was what we've been kind of planning on to help eliminate some of the costs in Fund 10.
Okay, so that's what it is.
So that money, so that 100,000 that we were talking about, even though the money may come back in a different form, we won't be able to utilize it under Fund 10 and be able to use the $100,000 under Fund 10 to be able to do staffing and this and that and some of those other things. Is that correct, Kevin?
Well, the money isn't in Fund 10, so this is, we're.
Well, I'm just saying, right now, it's in
Because by moving it and pulling it out of Fund 50, which is otherwise, you really can only use Fund 50 for serve food, but you can use it for utilities.
Utility.
We have.
So we can pay part of our utility bills, and that would be
Correct.
money that would come out of Fund 10 if we weren't able to pull it out of.
Right.
Hence, that's where again, tomatoes, where I kept talking about like 100,000 or whatever have you, it would just be, we wouldn't be able to use it. We wouldn't be able to have it.
You'd have, those costs would come out of Fund 10, you'd have.
So that'd be $100,000 less than Fund 10 that we'd have
Or 80,
available, Fund 80 to be able to utilize.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
understand that. I just didn't realize that the 80 that you were mentioning was the utility.
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have a question from a member of the community, maybe?
We can't do that. No. All right. So with that being said, do we want to do this vote as a vote? This is something that we want to table and look up for next year? What exactly is it that the board would like to be able to do in relationship to this?
To approve it. Where's the question? His motion is.
Well, it's discussion and approval, so. All right, so I think okay, all right. You can make a motion, and if it don't pass, it just don't pass. All right, so if you want to make if somebody want to make a motion?
I would like to motion to approve entering the community eligibility provision CEP for food services for the 2025-26 school year.
All right, those in favor, with aye?
Aye.
Wait, stop, I'm sorry. Oh, wait, I need a second, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna second.
All right,
Bacon.
all right, all in favor, with aye?
Aye.
How many? Is that 2 or 3? All right, those that don't? Aye. All right, 4. Ms. Robinson, what was your vote?
I'm torn.
We got a vote on.
I missed one of the 4.
Vito, Almar, Farrington, Ashley.
Thank you.
Well, it's 4.
It's, I mean, it's, yeah, but again, I like to be able to make sure that unless you want to abstain.
Yeah.
4 was Welch and
Bacon.
No, that's not 4, that's. 4 is for approval. 4 is no, which is Beto, Almar, Farrington, and Ashley. Yes, so far are Welch and Macon, and Robinson is. You can abstain.
You can. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so motion goes 4-2-1,
Or
2-4-1, I'm so sorry. So no, motion does not pass. All right, let's go on to our next item, which is. Okay.
Can I just say one quick thing that you may want to put on the calendar if you do want to have this conversation? And I do apologize. With my departure, I wanted to make sure we had a chance to talk about this. But if you want to put a note on the calendar to think about talking about it earlier.
Again for next year?
And right, and then just so you have the time to
When?
investigate.
You got that? Okay, cool. All right, and then plus also those other questions and stuff that were there or whatever, in relationship to that need or whatever, maybe we've got a questionnaire or something that goes out to the families or whatever. Okay, all right.
Hey, I have a question. So
What are we questioning now? What's the question about?
On 5J, Helmar read that she's motioning.
But she still has to vote. She can make the motion. You can make a motion on anything. The person has to vote. Yeah. All right. Yes. Okay. All right. So let's go on to item item K, approval of the Southeastern Wisconsin Schools Alliance, SWSA. Your friend, Ms. Macon. But anyway, we'll do that report later on. Okay, Dr. Cotton?
So tonight, the administration is seeking your approval for the payment of the annual dues of the Southeastern Wisconsin School Alliance, SWSA, in the amount of $3,700 for the 25-26 school year.
All right. So questions in relationship to SWSA and us being able to do the being able to pay for that. I think Ms. Macon, don't you think that this is something that we need to be part of?
Well, we talked about that last week and we were going to approve that additional money because we're part of a partnership
Right.
to make sure that we continue to get the support.
Thank you so much, Ms. Macon. I appreciate that clarification. All right. So would someone like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve the Southeastern Wisconsin Schools Alliance, SWSA, annual dues for the 25-26 school year.
Thank you very much, Ms. Farrington. Motion has been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Bacon. Motion made and seconded. All any discussion? All in favor will raise hand and or aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries 7-0. So good, Ms. Bacon.
Stop.
All right. Okay, got it. All right, so let's go on to item L, our facilities and ground report. Mr. Brooks.
Evening, board. I will just give you a quick update. We are in the mix of summertime cleaning. We're getting everything cleaned out. Floors are starting to get waxed. Furniture is starting to get polished. Lights are starting to get replaced. We're in the mix of it in all three buildings. So we're doing really well right now. The pool's being emptied, scrubbed, everything else, getting that ready for the next season. So we're really going at it right now. Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed, we're doing a lot of tree trimming. I give a little bit of a shout out to the grounds guys. They've been making this place really great. David J. Frank has been making this place beautiful with the flower setup.
Man, we're looking real good. I can't. We are looking really good.
So just gonna give them that. My report part is done. The next stage of.
Okay. I guess my question, Matt, is this. So over the course of the summer, we've got all of these different projects and everything else that are kind of going on, more beautification type things or whatever have you. Have we already started to look at the staffing thing and everything when we get ready to come back in session in the fall? Are we already kind of pretty much set from a facility standpoint and we've got all the contractual pieces put in together and everything else like that?
Yeah.
Staffing and everything that we need for facilities?
Well, we have an open position right now. We also have some temporary people from a temp agency that I could be looking at hiring as well. The summer is really kind of the judgment of how well they work, if they want to continue after the summer.
All right. Any questions for Matt? From a facility standpoint? Like I said before, we look good. I mean, that's one thing that I've always prided ourselves on for Brown Deer or whatever have you. When you think about, even though we're a small campus and we've got 3 schools on it or whatever have you, if you look at this footprint or whatever have you, it's gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. So, all right. And we get compliments all the time. I got friends that come over or whatever have you, be like, man, y'all stuff look good. So yeah, so hats off to the facility and they're all of our vendors that kind of help us be able to maintain and keep this together. All right. Any other questions for Matt? None? All right, let's go on to our next item, which is the approval of the custodian comprehensive process manual. Now, would that be Matt?
Yes, this would be me.
Okay.
Good evening, board. Over the past, I'd say I've been working on this for better part of a year now. Trying to get, together a manual to be able to give to our custodians, to give all of our custodians just the basis that we need to be a great staff. Giving them a basis to say, if we get a new member of our team, they have a process manual, just what is the expectations of our beautiful facilities? What can we do about cleaning the floors? How we clean the tables? How we take care of the rest of our facilities? And so what this is, this will be a kind of like a living document. So as we find better, newer ways of doing things, I can actually put this into the manual and give it to our guys. Say, hey, this is an updated fashion of how to do this. This also presides with our handbook as well. So that way they really have, I'm trying to give them everything that I possibly can to be the best people for our district. And so all I'm looking for you guys is to approve us having this in the districts.
That's the EOP plan?
No, this is for just the custodial process manual.
Right. See, only thing, Matt, is this, it's not here and it's not in our, it's not in our packet and it's not, on board docs.
Yes, are you asking for?
So is this an approval or what is this?
Or do
Well, it is, I'm asking for you guys to adopt it so that I can start handing it to my.
But adopt what we don't see.
Yeah, I did on my executive summary, I did have it as a, it was,
But see, but it's not popping up, it's not coming up on our board docs and it's not in the packet. So-
this process on his executive.
okay.
Oh, and that's why I didn't see it. That's why I was like, well, maybe he's gonna give us something when we get there. Yeah, because I was looking for it and I was like,
It's right here. Never got all the way down to the link.
so you did a mix.
So, but in looking for the link as a part of the agenda item, this is on. executive summary.
Okay, so that would be my fault.
Oh, here it is, right? Okay, well, again, we see this part right here, but again, it's not, it didn't pop up in board docs or whatever.
Okay.
So because we don't even have the executive summary isn't popping up in board docs. I don't see it in mine. Did you see it in yours?
Yeah, the executive summary is there, but the link is on.
The link's not.
Okay, all right.
So is this something you can table?
Can we, now, Matt, is this something that needs to happen like right now, or can we table it? Can we get it so everybody gets an opportunity to read it?
So we can go from this and tell them.
Well, okay, so with that, can we get somebody to make a motion potentially just to table this right now? Yeah. Go ahead.
So I love standard operating procedures. It makes life easy because people know what to do, when to do, how to do it. So once they have this plan, so say the plan was to come in here and, get this room together. How do they check it off? Do you check it off?
We started implementing checkoff lists and stuff like that. And again, that's part of the document of doing all this is that, as things change and as rooms develop and as we develop as bigger districts, we can actually add and adapt these processes. Say, as you clean the bathroom, you gotta use a checkoff list. Here's what it's check off.
Then are they gonna sign at the beginning like, yep, I have my check off, yep, I understand.
Correct.
Perfect. This is great, actually, I would love to see it.
Right.
Okay, so point of clarification in relationship to this. All of the hyperlinks for it are actually under the facilities and grounds report, not in the approval of the custodial comprehensive process manual. So what happened was that technically should have gone here with the approval of the custodial part, but you got it in the facility grounds report.
Okay.
And so the hyperlink actually technically should have went there because when I opened up mine, I looked for it, I didn't see anything. And then when I looked at the executive summary, I didn't even look at the hyperlink pieces or whatever have you, because I was basically looking at the executive summary. So that was just probably one of those glitches that ended up happening when you got to put everything together.
I do.
So with that being said, are there any other questions for Matt in relationship to this? Because otherwise, we probably need to just be able to table this until the next board meeting. So whoever will make the motion, just make the motion to table.
Dr. Vito, I'd like to make a motion to table the custodian comprehensive process manual that was presented to.
All right.
Because it wasn't presented.
For approval. All right, so thank you very much, Ms. Macon. Motion has been made to table. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hallmeyer. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? You can see that all in favor will raise hand and/or aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 6. All right, motion carries 6-0. All right, let's go on to our next item.
That's
So that's gonna be a no.
Say again, so sorry. Ms. Macon?
Same issue.
Same issue that it's not, it was a hyperlink that
Yeah,
got to the wrong, so.
Okay, so is that another, we're gonna have to do the same thing? All right, so again, with someone, since we don't have this, we're gonna need the table in.
Yeah, I motion to table this to our next meeting.
All right, motion to table the 25 to 27 commercial cleanup facility. All right, motion has been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Farrington. Motion made and seconded. Any other discussion? Oh, Ms. Ashley, what we're doing is tabling, right now, we're tabling M, because the hyperlink was part of the executive summary and not, with the, contract.
5M.
Yep. All right, so motion has been made and seconded, and so all in favor, raise hand and or aye again? Okay, so, Ms. Robinson made the motion, Ms. Farrington second.
Is this the custodian?
This is N, 5N.
5N.
Right, so 5M was tabled,
Okay.
and Ms. Macon made the motion, Ms. Hallmeyer seconded, and it went 6-0 to be tabled. Be tabled.
6-0.
Yep.
Got it.
And then 5N is Robinson, then Farrington second to be able to table N. All right. All right.
It's 0 again.
No, we've been ready to vote right now because Miss Ashley came in. That's why I was letting her know. All right, so all in favor, raise hand and or aye. Any opposed? And see the motion carries 7-0. All right, let's go on to our next item, which is safety update.
good evening, board. This is just an informational thing. Voting, nothing. I just wanted to let you guys know that the Facilities and Grounds Department has been working with all of the building leads again to get the emergency operations plans, the OPs set together. We're getting all the safety protocols, starting to get those more developed and on track to be able to give the trainings, the necessary trainings that are necessary for teachers to for when they come in August. So we're starting to do that. We're going to be ramping up meetings come July to get all that taken care of, and I'll have more for you guys in July about that. So it's just more just like you guys know that we're still looking at doing all the trainings. We're still continuing to do all the meetings for the emergency operations.
Oh, I got a question for you, Matt. I know that. I know during the summertime, we do a lot of things with AAU and everything else like that, utilizing our facilities and stuff like that. What are we looking at in relationship to like security for that? And are we also charging them for the extra cleanup and everything else like that?
Yeah, most of the people that do use our facilities during the school year. Students, we do have people, but most of them are on outdoors right now. There's a couple of camps that do utilize, like a couple of the basketball camps that are outside organizations. They do get charged for use of our areas. So yeah.
And that includes security?
Yes, that includes security.
Okay. All right, cool. Perfect. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you very much, Matt. All right, let's go on to our next item, which is approval of the interactive flat panels. All right, Ms. Turner,
Hi,
I would imagine that would be you.
that is me. That is.
Since Mr. Clemick has distanced himself from everything. Yeah.
He's exited the building, 1 foot out. No, so I came to you this time last year, in 2023, I think it was, to purchase flat panels for, Brown Deer Elementary and middle high school. So, for the math department and so on. So, we are, because of the way that we structured the lease, I hope I explained that in the executive summary. And the use of ECF dollars and device, not having to purchase those things, we've been trying to make some advances in our classroom AV purchases and so on. So knowing that we were taking advantage of other fund dollars to provide devices. So this is what I did, and I normally we wouldn't do it at this time of year, but we've kind of we were holding out just in case. So the board decided to move a different direction. So what we'd like to do is use those excess funds that we hadn't spent, and then we would be purchasing new line panels for first, second, and third grade. So we'd be doing 3 grade levels. We've done kindergarten and 4K at the elementary school. The way that we would like to proceed is depending on what the big guys behind me give me in budget. Based on my request, I'd like to finish out 4th and 5th grade this next year, but we probably wouldn't do that this summer. So, but it is, we'd just be purchasing outright, no leasing or anything like that. These would be 85-inch panels, but not mounted. So there's no electrical costs. I have decided we will never mount anything again. We are going to put them on carts, and that way they're bullet mobile. And after surveying the staff, we did that at the end of the 23-24 school year. Teachers don't want to give up their whiteboards. So, so having a cart makes it a little bit more mobile. It allows those spaces to be a little more flexible. So, so protecting those wishes, that's what we're going to do. So, if you would vote to approve, we'll do that. We'll take possession of the items in July. And I will make sure that I receive the invoice promptly so that we can finish out the fiscal year and have an impairment, but we won't. So.
All right, questions for Ms. Turner? All right. Would someone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve the purchase of 17 86-inch new line flat panels for classrooms for the 2025-2026 school year at the cost not to exceed $53,615, utilizing the remaining funds in the 24-25 budget.
All right, motion has been made. Do you have a second?
Second.
Ms. Megan, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? I guess my question then is going to be, Ms. Turner and stuff, is okay, we're focusing right now on the elementary school?
Yeah, I forgot to say, we've got 2 panels there, because I was like 17, that's right.
I'm getting ready to be
The
exact.
business ed lab. So, so Rob Green and Tony Buford had, they have OG setups. So if you remember back in 2009, when we redid those science labs in the Little Theater and the MAC, so their classroom setups are set up that way. And if you go and see Rob Green's stuff, he's great. He's got like projector and like 2 TVs and like an IT, it's.
Yeah, I remember now, he's always full, so he's.
Yes, he has a Mimeo Peach Bar and he does not complain about it, but it is, with that, even with, so the projector is 100 inches diagonally, a new line flat panel is 86 inches diagonally, but it's so crisp and clear, so it's gonna be great. So yeah, so that would be it. And then we would look to them, that probably determine, a lot of high school teachers don't want to touch, they don't need, mess with. So we probably look to purchase other TVs for them, which is way less expensive.
Right, okay, all right. With that being said, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor will raise hand and/or aye. Any opposed? You can see none, motion carries unanimously. All right, Ms. Turner.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, so now let's go on to our next item, our board reports, nice and brief. All right, let's go on to item A, our SWSA legislative update.
Okay, just gonna make this real sweet, short. There was no meeting for this month. However, we did get some correspondence that just basically said they're really pushing to make sure that we're going to be pushed out at least what we expect to get from the state for funding. The next meeting will probably be a little bit more clear on what was supposed to come down from Evers will be on July 15th. So I think there will be an executive board meeting on the 22nd of July. So sometime between July 15th and 22nd, we'll know more. There is no meeting in August for our team.
Right, yeah, generally in the summertime, they kind of.
Yeah, the executive board, you're on that executive board, correct, or?
No,
Oh, we don't have anyone on the.
not on the e-board.
Okay, so the executive board will meet on August 12th, but there will not be a meeting in.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Bacon. All right, let's go to our WASB update.
So just a couple of budgetary things and learning opportunities. So Joint Finance Committee approved their proposed budget for K-12 with a minimal increase to spend. You kind of talked about this a little bit, from 35 to 37%. No increases in general aid, so meaning all the $325 from property taxes. No increase in per pupil aid and minimal increases in mental health and transportation. So WASB, in collaboration with other educational leaders, released a joint statement in response to the budget. And so that statement went out on the 13th of this month. And then there is a learning opportunity, a summer learning symposium, July 11th to the 12th at Stevens Point. Yeah, and so
When is that again? I can't hear.
the 11th to the 12th of next month.
Right, you should actually gotten that in the mail. Actually, I got mine today. So you should actually be getting that WASB update thing in the mail.
Thank you.
And just a couple of legal reminders about how boards are supposed to function in closed session. Not using your email to communicate preferences, proper steps to convene in closed session, stay within confines of the closed session exemption, and those are the measures for that. And then just finally, that convention proposals for the January conference were due on last Friday, and so we submitted, right? Do we submit a proposal?
For the WASB for January.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, we do. We definitely have one. Two. We definitely have two.
Okay, yes,
We've
because
never done it before.
they did say that they were looking for Milwaukee, I'm gonna say Milwaukee
Area, yeah.
voice, and so.
Yes. So what were the proposals?
We have one from the elementary and then Russ Turner also.
Yeah.
supplied
For
one.
technology,
Mhm.
right.
It was our STAR students, so it was our library program, so Ms. Taylor working with kind of the self-contained special ed classrooms to make sure that they're served and building out their collection and just improving their reading rates and their reading scores. Awesome. It's good stuff.
And actually with the, I incorrectly gave it only to the elementary. He's the one that submitted it, but it would be all three of our building leaders that would be providing information in regards to from action to implementation in regards to the strategic plan and the use of PLCs. So if accepted, that's what all three of them would be able to present.
And did any of our bands?
That's a little bit later, but they all know about the band as well as the art competition. They all have that information, but their submission is a little bit later.
Okay.
Yeah. That would be great if we were able of our band or our thing to be able to be featured in relationship to that and stuff, because I know as long as I've been going to WASB, we've actually never presented. I think, well, I'll take that back. I think Dr. Kermag presented something once upon a time, but that was in a bid, that was at least 7-8 years ago. So, but otherwise, I don't think we've ever presented anything else since then and stuff. So good job, Dr. Cotton, in making sure that we talked about that and you turn and you follow through. So good job. All right. Was that everything, Ms. Wade? All right, let's go into our Ed Foundation report.
We have not met.
Okay.
And I think I reported on scholarship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And Parks and Rec? Nope, okay. So Parks and Rec, we thought that there was supposed to be a meeting on June 3rd. We went for the meeting and there was no meeting, and it was told that the next meeting wasn't gonna be until August? October, I'm so sorry. So the next meeting isn't until October. But we didn't get that information, and so I actually emailed the committee chair for Park and Rec, and that's how we found that out. But on June 3rd, bells on, went to the meeting, and a dark building. So, all right, so next meeting is gonna be October. So now let's go on to our item number 7, our board planning calendar, June 30th to July 4th, 4th of July holiday, no summer school. July 4th, of course, nothing. 7th, school resumes. The 18th is the last day of summer school. Speaking of that, what are our numbers looking like for summer school right now?
You know what, I'll have to get back to you with the report.
Okay. All right, thank you. August 8th is our summer board retreat. See, somebody asked me about that. Okay, so yeah, August 8th is our summer board retreat. August 12th is our special board meeting.
It's the 8th and
The
not
8th.
the 9th.
I've got the 8th on here.
I got the 9th on my calendar. Now, it's the 8th.
It's the
It may
8th.
8th. The 8th is a Friday. Yeah, the
Yeah.
8th is a Friday. So it's the 8th.
scheduled the, actually,
Did we schedule it for a Friday? I thought we usually.
I have it on here on the 9th.
I thought we usually do it on the Saturday.
Saturday the 9th.
So
Let me go
We
get
do it on Saturdays. Okay, so again, well, we'll go ahead and we'll make sure that we got a whole month before that even happens. Then the August 20th to the 22nd is New Teachers Week. August 25th is the Welcome Back Kickoff. The 26th is our regular board meeting, and then the 27th is the open house. All right, with that being said,
Are we talking about dates on calendars, just to make sure everybody got the annual meeting on their calendar? September 25th.
yeah,
Which, by the way,
Yep, I have that.
you're in CB.
At 6 o'clock.
Arizona. All right, so with that being said, so now do we have clarification? Is it on the 9th?
What approved calendar is August 8th?
scheduled for the 8th.
It should be on the 9th.
Because usually we do it on a Saturday, not a Friday.
No,
So the
you
9th.
should do it on the Friday.
Oh, you know what? I'm thinking about the other thing that we usually do on a Saturday morning, because we'll do from like 8 to 12.
No,
I
I
would
think
think
the
the tour has always kind of been on a week, if I'm.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, we have, but.
Because I've been taking.
All right, so is it gonna be, so is it, all right, so let's do clarification. Is it August 8th or is it August 9th? Is it that Friday or is it that Saturday?
We have it scheduled for, that the board approved February 25th this year. It is scheduled for August the 8th.
All right, well, it's meeting is August 8th, from August 8th, from what time to what time? 9 to 12?
Change this. I don't know, I gotta see.
Okay, well, that's August 8th. We've got some time, so let's, all right. So with that being said, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. It's easy.
Motion has been made. We got a second, Ms. Meredith? Oh, okay. Ms. Ashley, we have a second. All in favor, raise hand and/or aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none. Unanimous. I don't believe it. All right. I call this meeting adjourned at 8:48 p.m. Thank you very much for spending your time with us this evening, and everybody be safe and enjoy this warm, hot weather. Yes, ma'am.